All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Off Topic Podcast. I'm your man, Dan.
And I'm Jose.
And today we have the wonderful...
Jacklyn.
Yes, ma'am. That's what's up. Y'all have a good Thanksgiving?
I did.
Yeah.
We spent it together.
We did, actually,
really?
yeah. What about you? What'd you do this Thanksgiving?
Visited with family, visited with friends, came into town to take care of my parents and be with my parents. Family is so important.
So Jackie actually lives in California. She visits every once in a while. So you actually grew up here, though, right?
More or less, yeah. I moved to California 4 years ago, but I lived in Loudon since I was about 7 or 8 years old. So a big chunk of my life. Right before I left to California, I got this job. I needed to get a day job. Yoga was slowing down and I wasn't really selling as best as I could. So I got this day job and I was working for an automotive shop. And on my second day, they came in and they had a dead fox. And they said to me, "Okay, Jack, you're going to skin this fox today." And I was like, "Oh, that's really funny. Good one, guys, And they said, "No, seriously, this is going to be your task today. It's your work." And, at that point, I needed the work. Yeah. So I was too scared to say no. And also, a bit of me thought to myself, well, this is a life skill, and I may never have the opportunity again to skin an animal. So they taught me how, and they directed me, and I skinned a fox. It was already dead. It had been hit by a car that morning, and when my boss at that time found it, he just threw it in his truck, right, so no one else would get it. Yeah. And they had me skin this thing, and they're taking pictures of me. They're making it. They're smile, and I'm like,
damn, yeah. I mean, they walk you through because there's method to it, right? To be able to skin, because I've seen some of my friends skin deer and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure they're letting, hey, cut under here, or you were there just that's almost honestly sounds a little traumatic, honestly.
It was super traumatic, and they directed me because you don't want to cut the pelt on accident. So you want to hold the pelt at a certain angle as you're cutting around the organs. And thankfully, knowing body, being a trainer, knowing some anatomy, I could tell, where that line was to cut alongside the muscle. However, yes, I was traumatized. It's a cool story, and I still have the photos, but everyone hates seeing them.
I'm about to see those photos.
Nobody wants to see them. No, I came home and I'm like, "Look, I skinned a fox," and they're like, "That's terrible." Yeah. My whole yoga community is a lot of vegans, so you can only imagine. Yeah. And so I never shared those photos, but I did. I prefaced the story with the fox was hit already. It's not like they shot it. And then, at least I have that skill. So in the future, I have this skill. I have this experience. This is a really primitive, primal kind of thing to work with animal meat. And a lot of people, won't get that opportunity.
Yeah. And I'm sure a little bit of inside of you just kind of felt a little bit of excitement watching that filleting knife just kind of follow the skin. Because it's crazy how it's so tough, but it's so gentle at the same time. Because like you said, you don't want to cut the pelt. So they probably wanted to keep it to stuff it or make a rug out of them. But when you're working that knife, all you got to do is just almost like butter. Just follow the lines. And then if you go too deep, then you just cut through, some people don't care. It's whatever, fuck it. Just cut chunks out. But yeah, it's like an art skill. It's really cool to know that.
It's definitely an art. And you don't want to cut into certain organs because they'll start bleeding too much and it's draining.
You contaminate the meat, or if they're gonna eat the meat, or if you cut the stomach open, that's really nasty.
Yeah,
yes.
I heard the stench can be horrifying.
The stench was so bad, actually. It's burned into my mind, and actually it was definitely traumatizing because I had to do it because it was part of my work and I was being instructed to do it and I needed to keep the job. It was not in a work description anywhere. That was nowhere in my.
I'm filleting foxes.
Because you said this was an automotive shop.
Yeah, I was doing reception work, and they were just tough, country guys, and so they had me do this because they didn't want to get their hands dirty. They were like, let's put the new girl through the ringer. Yeah. I actually got such a nasty cold afterwards because I had suppressed that emotion. Yeah. And I didn't say no. I didn't speak up. I wasn't in the position to speak up. And it caused me to catch a bad cold.
Immune system.
That's cool. So let me ask you a question though. So let's say I'm asking you two questions. First one, if you're not in that position, do you ever skin an animal?
You could be in another position where you might need to like
Okay.
hunt and
So you would. So you would be, I mean, you'd go back to, like you said, that primal nature if needed.
I believe in homesteading. You know, I think we live in a great modern society where our food is provided. However, the state of the world and where it's in, you know, we should have more sustainable animal and agricultural practices. So for that reason, it's important that this knowledge is not lost.
Yeah. You'd be surprised. People don't even know, like, even like if you go get barbecue and stuff, people don't know ribs come from pork. You know, how crazy is people don't know what they're eating. They're like, yo, is this cow? And it's like, I mean, some are, but it's like, damn, bro, you got to really understand what you're putting into yourself or like where it comes from. You know, like the fillets and the center cuts. People are like, I don't know, bro, steak is steak. But it's like, you gotta understand there's different parts of animals that you're eating. There's different parts you don't eat, you know, stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. My second question, because you said, what'd you call that? Rhyme something?
Did you say Reiki earlier?
Reiki.
Yeah.
So now that you're aware of how you not speaking up can affect you, let's say you backtrack in life and you're in that position again and they say, yo, Jack, skin this fox. Would you have approached that differently?
I would have approached it differently. I probably still would have done it because, like I said, an inkling about 10 or 15% of myself was interested actually in that skill. But going back and going forward, anytime I need to speak up and honor my boundaries, I really honor that. I really honor that feeling of, I don't feel comfortable with this experience. I don't feel moving forward with this action is appropriate. At this point in my life, I know myself well enough where certain times I have to speak up and I have to enforce those boundaries. And boundaries are really beautiful. They're a beautiful thing for you and your friends and your relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me personally, I feel like growing up, you know, I grew up with two sisters. You know, I always feel like I was, you know, had a soft side of me. So like saying no was actually a struggle for me for a very long time in my life. Like I'm definitely a people pleaser naturally, you know, push over a little bit. You could say that. But you know, something I talked to Dan's before a little bit, like about being in business. If you don't learn how to say no, you know, people will walk all over you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, in anything, not just business, but I feel like for me, like the catalyst that made me go from being Mr. Yes Man to like saying no was like being like, hey, if I say yes to everything, like I can never really grow my business, or I'll take opportunities which won't leave me time for opportunities that I might actually need down the road. You know?
Do you think people are being more like becoming more aware of boundaries? Like, because the reason I ask is because. So growing up, I mean, you and I grew up hanging out with, you know, like my brother and all his friends and all the people, and we just kind of joked on each other and we clowned on each other, and there was no boundary. You know, there was like, you could talk about people's family, or even like as you get older, you could just be rude as shit. You know, you kind of take it and it's like, yo, man up, bro, whatever, it's just bullshit, man up. But it's like now that we're more aware of things that are disrespectful or are not cool in general, like we're more aware of that, right? I think it's kind of neat, honestly, because I didn't start hearing the word boundaries till like fucking like 3 years ago.
Damn.
Yeah, dude, it was always like, yo, what's your, you know, what's mine is everyone's, fuck it, or like people can talk shit, whatever, it doesn't matter. There's also like you said, you got to learn to be like, hey, I'm not happy with how you're acting, or I'm not happy with how you're treating me. Like, speak up on it.
Speak up.
Yeah.
And also, not being reactive, but being responsive. So if someone says something to me and that kind of rubs me the wrong way, it could rub me the wrong way for a variety of reasons. It could be something that's just going on with me, or they could genuinely have some sort of ill intent or negativity or animosity toward me. But you have to really take a moment to pause and figure out what it is, what's exactly going on. And at first it may not be clear. You may need to get more information. So oftentimes I might say when someone crosses my boundaries, what did you mean by that?
Yeah.
Instead of just going straight for the assumption, which we might do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've
Like, can you clarify? You know, can you clarify what you meant? You know. One time I was like, yo, Josie, you thick as fuck. And he was like, what the fuck you say to me? And I was like, bro, you've been working out. Like, you know, you're a brick wall in here. So yeah, it's one of those things where it could be, yeah, I'm talking shit. But it could be taken in different ways. You really have to take the time to like ingest what they're saying or digest what they're saying and be like, yo, was that ill intent? And also, I'm big on energy. I don't know about y'all, but like you can read people's energy. So like if I say something to someone and you can feel that like there's some sort of like hostility or just like hatred towards it. Like you really feel like, yo, I don't know if I like the way this guy's talking, you know?
Yeah. So. Yeah, and I know, and I've seen it in conversation, like, especially in relationships. Sometimes, like you know, sometimes you don't realize what another person's gone through. So when you say something that might not be, you know, that deep or meaningful to somebody else, but to that person, it could, you know, devastate them. And like she said, they're not thinking about what you meant; they're thinking about what their, you know, their perspective on it. So they could, like she said, if they're reactive, people can definitely go off or be offended or say things way different than how you.
I had a situation where I was with someone and they were very, I think it was their past relationship was like super, not traumatic. I mean, I want to say traumatic, where it was like everything was reactive. Like everything was the offensive. Like, boom, go. Like if I was like, yo, like just relax a little bit. It was like, boom, first insult you could throw, second, third, fourth. And it's like, and then they wait for the, like they would sit back and wait for like they would wait for the reciprocation. And I'm like, why do you do that? Like, why are you like just so quick to react and just throw everything out there that you can and then expect some sort of like kickback? Like, I'm not gonna speak to you like that. Like, so why do you expect me to? Like, cause it was like the physical, like, you know, like now it's your turn. Like now you say some shit, and it's like, bro, this is not a rap battle. Like this is not, you know, like, but yeah, like you said, it's very like reactive can be a very dangerous thing, especially if you don't understand. Like if you're reactive and I'm not reactive, then there's gonna be some sort of wall in between, and we got to work that. Either I'm gonna be reactive to you back and then we have big issues, or you're gonna have to learn to speak to me, or even like think clearly before you have a conversation with me about something that may at one point be reactive, but now that you've thought about it, it's more responsive.
I just want to speak on that generally based on what you're sharing. I think that women can be more respectful to men. I think that women often are super reactive to men in their life and reactive to their partners, and men deal with so much stress in their daily life, and women are really unaware of it. Even myself, I wasn't aware of this sort of situation, you know, because I'm not a man. I don't experience what they experience. But understanding what they go through on a daily basis and in their lives as general really allowed me to speak to the men in my life more kindly and with respect, and have respect for how they show up. So even you just telling us that story that someone was super reactive toward you, but you took a step back, you know, that just speaks for men in general, having that sense of stability, groundedness, not going into rage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, stoicism.
Yeah, stoicism.
But that's like it goes almost like every situation is unique in its own, because there's a lot of men that would react in rage, and I think that's where that came from. That whole, you know, that step back, like now it's your turn. Let's see what the fuck you got. Kind of react.
I like that you very specifically use the word like respect when talking about men, and this is something that I'm like very, very huge on. You know, last time you were here, I think I talked to you a little bit about like my Christian background. You know, like my upbringing, and you know, there's a verse in the Bible where, you know, the Bible's talking in context of marriage between a man and a woman, and he says, you know, husbands, love your wife, and then he says, you know, wives, respect your husbands, you know, and he's almost giving us like a blueprint, like, you know, for a healthy relationship, you know, women, and you obviously you can tell me what you think, you know, women thrive on love, you know, a lot of times, whether that looks like words of affirmation, gifts, you know, whatever, but just love. And then men also thrive on getting respect from their woman, you know, like I noticed that, you know, in a lot of my other relationships, it was very hard for me. Like if someone, even maybe they, you know, they raised their voice or said something to me, you know, that I took very disrespectfully, you know, sometimes people raising their voice to me, that was kind of hard for me to be like, whoa, like, you know, take a step back, like what's going on? And whenever I just didn't feel respected, I noticed that was the time when I like started like maybe like going back into my shell and almost like sometimes even withholding love, and then they would not even respect me. And then it's just a cycle where it's like, who's going to give in first? You know what I mean? And it's a tough cycle. I mean, like I said, I think men thrive on, you know, at least feeling like their woman like respects, you know, who they are, and even if they don't agree with them all the time, you know, but just having that and showing that, I feel like it can go a long way. Yeah.
I think you and I are similar to where, because I think when you're put in that position, you can go one of two ways. You can be that reactive person back, and like you said, let that rage overcome you, and then you're that asshole that's fucking, you know, yelling at your girl, you know, or words start flying. And there's two things you can't take back in this world, man. It's a bullet fired from a gun and words spoken from the mouth. I've always been very cautious of the things that I say to people. Or you could be like you and me, and honestly, that's what we were talking about earlier about how someone called me an avoidant, because it's like instead of allowing myself to indulge in that rage, because I mean, that's a dangerous thing, you know. I'm just gonna remove myself from that situation, or I'm gonna remove myself until we've calmed down to where I can think logically about what's going on, and also give them the opportunity, like, yo, think about what you just said, or think about how you just acted, and how that could have been approached differently, or how even you're just wrong at this point. You know, you just failed to realize it.
Yeah. You know, based on that quote that you just shared coming from the Bible's got a lot of gems. I'm going to just out myself that I've never fully read the Bible like most of my peers. And that could be the reason that I dove deep into spirituality in the sense of yoga and other philosophies looking for that. However, the Bible does have tons of gems, and that one is actually a really clear blueprint because women do want love. Women do want those words of affirmation. So give your woman love, give your wife love is an excellent blueprint. And for the wife to give the husband's respect, this is something that I often share with women. A man's love language is respect. 100%. You know, they talk about these love language of words of affirmation, gifts, physical touch, quality time. I don't have the next one right now, but I'm sure you guys know it. You can list it.
Words of affirmation. I don't know. I think it's also a thing about burrito, but yeah.
But anyway, it's on the screen. Yeah, so it's on the screen. So these are the 5 love languages or whatever. But a man's love language is respect. If you're not respecting your man, if you're talking that mess to him, he's just going to tune you out. He is not going to want to deal with you. So that's the literal baseline for men.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And it's crazy because, you know, you don't learn these things until you start living these things. And it's like, damn, it's like, how come I can walk in a room full of all my friends and all these strangers and all these grown-ass men, and it's like, hello, Mr. Chicas, how are you? Hello, you know, straight respect. And then you walk in your room with your lady, and it's like, damn, I'm getting talked to like I'm a fucking small dog right now.
Dude, and here's the thing, like, especially when you love this person and you know you're with them for a while, and like a lot of times you can like they can like either build your self-esteem or completely just destroy your self-esteem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's how much you can tolerate. Because I mean, honestly, man, in my life, I've been broken down to fucking nothing, bro. I started from zero. The only thing that keeps me and it kept me afloat is my friends, honestly. And this goes back to, I mean, men in general. I think that men are, at one point in life, we were afraid to show love to each other. You know how they say give your flowers while you're alive? I think we're finally realizing that. I mean, we got a group chat every morning. I'm like, what's up, my boys? I fucking love y'all, man. Hope y'all have a great day. Joe's you the man. Pop's you the man. I fucking hope you guys are killing it, you know? And those things you send them back. And every morning I'm like, damn, like I am a great person, bro. Like I am a good fucking man. Like I'm awesome. You know, I need these things because, like, you know, I mean, I know that there's millions of conversations about it, but men don't really get that credit in this life, man. We have our expectations, and it's like, that's it. That's it.
Men are expected to do so much. They're expected to do so much. You know, you see this on other podcasts, and women want the top, 5% of men. They want these like crazy high earners. They want men that can provide everything for them. But women are not traditional women these days. So it's a bit of everything is off balance, and women are a lot deeper into their masculine these days, just the way society is set up, I think that, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing too, though. That has its benefits, like a woman being in touch with that I think in our last podcast we spoke about, there needs to be a balance in people's lives. As a man, you need to be in touch with that feminine side a little bit so that you are understanding of women, but also understanding of your own inner emotion. And then as a woman, to be more awake or more aware of your masculinity, also understand you can take charge. You can stand up to men. Obviously it's got to be respectful, vice versa, men and women. But you don't have to be this like beneath them, because at the end of the day, there's nobody beneath anybody else. It doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. You are equals. So I do think that it's a good thing that women are learning to take on that a little more of that masculine role. Speaking of that, now I've been in the dating world in a while, but how do you guys feel about like the men and women dynamic? Because this is like, so women are more in touch with their, they want to be top earners too. They want to be, I don't want to call it masculine, but they do want to be like the top dog, And then I guess men are also still up there, but they're also kind of being more aware of how they feel and how they want to, be treated as men. How do you guys see that?
I definitely see a big shift, in I think in the dating world, like you said. I mean, it's more common, okay, our generation before us, typically the man was the breadwinner, and the wife was
the woman, bro. It was like,
and that type of role. But now, I mean, you know, women, I could be wrong, you know, I don't have statistics on this right now, but women are I think that I actually, and I don't quote me on this, but you know, women, you know, there is like there is a wage gap, you know what I'm saying? But women are definitely, a lot of times are earning, you know, a lot more than, like, I guess some men are, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I never really understood the wage gap. Well, I do understand like the statistical of it, but also like, dude, there's women in job fields making a killing compared to men. I mean, it's salespeople. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. You make 6-7 figures. At what point are you gauging like how much someone's making per pennies when you're making 6 figures? And if you're making 6 figures, dude, who gives a shit if you're a man or woman? You're making 6 figures.
The statistics are they've developed over time, and essentially, like, I think it was in the 80s, you could measure that men were making more per occupation than women, and just generally across the board. But there were less women in higher paying roles and executive leadership. Okay. However, now these days, if you are a specialist in a field, like if you're a rocket scientist, for example, I know a girl I grew up with, she became a rocket scientist. You know, wow. She makes that bank, and because she's a female literal rocket engineer. Yeah. I should tag her here. She'll know exactly that I'm speaking on her. She's like a genius. So anyway, like, you know, she makes great money, and so in her field, I'm pretty sure she's like making co-measure. And actually, I did about 5-6 years ago when I lived here, I did a training on authenticity and racial diversity and inclusion. Mm-hmm. And so with that training, you actually had to break down social barriers and stereotypes, right? We all see different stereotypes, right? Yeah. And one of them broke down executive leadership statistics and which people would make different amounts. And there were some correlations, you know, on like certain groups of people being really smart in tech, for example, certain people like being in cybersecurity, you know, making those high amounts. But if you put yourself through the education these days, whether that's self-taught or like a technical training, if you are a specialist in these really valuable fields, you can out-earn your partner regardless of gender.
Yeah, you can out-earn anybody. When the IT boom hit, I think it was like 2016, I used to work at Audi, and people were coming in buying cars, and they're like, you know, I got to see their applications for credit and whatnot, or how much they're earning, where they work, and it was all the IT people. I mean, it was guys, girls, and they're making 160, 180,000 a year their first year, and they're like, yeah, I got my certifications, and I work IT here in Arlington or here in Herndon. It's like, damn, like you said, when you find a market or like a career path that's rewarding, obviously it's not like you're gonna walk in and get a job unless you got certification and stuff. But like you said, you put the work in, and guess what? You reap those rewards.
You got to put the work in. Yeah. You got to put the work in, and you also got to work on those things where you have gaps. If you have a gap in your education, if you have a gap in a skill set, you have to work on that and fill that gap and not avoid, you know, numbers, not avoid writing, whatever it is, because what's really beautiful is if you lean into your problems, if you lean into your struggles and you lean into that space where you have a deficit, you can actually fill it. And when you fill that flaw or you overcome that flaw, not only are you strengthening yourself for your career, for your like genetic lineage of people that come from you, you heal your aura. You like heal this blockage by overcoming this thing that's such a big challenge. And it's something that, you know, you think you could never do that. Like, oh, I could never write a book, or, oh, I could never, you know, work in coding, or, oh, I could never work in finance. If you keep thinking that, it's going to hold you there. But imagine if you thought to yourself, what if I really work on this? Maybe I could work in that field. And then it just opens up your life for so much more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, limiting beliefs for sure. Yeah, that'll definitely hold you back. And I also like the fact that you bring it into like generational too. You know what I mean? And like an example of this is like finances, you know, like in my family, you know, my parents know work hard, you know, and then work as hard as you can, you know, and then you can then pay for your bills or whatever, you know. And as I went to school, I went to Nova Community College for a little bit for finances, and like I just felt like I was learning really generic stuff about money. So I took it upon myself to learn about money, and like I started learning about like investing, you know, and like different ways to create cash flow. And like not one dimensional, you know, work hard 9 to 5, you know, or get a good education, you know, whatever. And I realized like, I couldn't really depend on my parents to teach me because, what they grew up learning was, first of all, they grew up in a different country, and they're exchanging, their time for very little money, So when they came here, they just saw everybody was working really hard, long hours. The longer hours you work, that's how you get more money, And then taking it upon myself, like she's saying, learning the skill gap or realizing that there's knowledge lacking. Now, if I had my, my next generation, my kids, I can then tell them like, hey, this is what helped me, then maybe poverty or like money won't be something that is an issue like it was maybe for my parents who did grow up in poverty, when they were in El Salvador and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They often talk about people coming from, we often see people come from a tough background or strong adversity or coming from poverty, generational poverty, and really hustling and working hard and striving toward a better life. And on the other side, we also see people come from a, well-off background, especially in this area where, we're from, where people come from generational wealth and then they also are entrepreneurial. They also want to start their own business and continue building that generational wealth. I think that's super beautiful. But what do you guys think? Do you guys know of any people that you can speak on, maybe like your family or friends that have come from a really tough background and you've really watched them to succeed?
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. My godfather owns a granite company and he came here when he was 18 from Honduras, and he didn't know a lick of English, didn't know how to do shit. He was just a worker for a granite company. Fast forward 20 years, it's his own business now. He's thriving. He's got family. He just bought a single family home with 4 bedrooms and 3-car garage and 2 acres. And he's got a home theater in his basement, and it's like, we used to go to, when I met him, my mom would pick him up for church in the mornings. And he's 10 years older than me. So he was 18 and I was like 8. And so we'd pick him up to go to church. And that's how I met him. He was just this kid. He was still a kid. I mean, he came here. His family brought him over, and he was just a kid. All it is we go to church. Next thing you know, it's like, hey, we're down the road. He's teaching me about business. Like, he's like, hey man, this is what you should do. I got my brother in business too. I think that he helped him kind of understand that logistic of it. And when you talk to this guy, it's like, yo, he's really well knowledge and well versed, and he knows everything about this and everything about that, and he can dial numbers and get measurements and all kinds of crazy shit, right? And run a business. And you look at it and it's like, people look at him like his employees and like, oh, this fucking guy, man, this guy just came with money. Mm-hmm. He just fucking put an LLC together or a corporation and now he's running. He thinks he's hot shit. And it's like, dude, I used to help him with his work when he just started. Yeah. Like that's why I like to think I got a strong core because we just picking that granite up, heavy as fuck. Yeah, heavy as shit. Dude, this table right here, so he custom made this table for us. If you guys want some work, you can't see it right now, but so this is custom made. But he's the biggest influence, obviously aside from my mom as well. But my mom, she works for the county, so she's found that level of like, I'm here, I'm making money, I'm paying my bills, I'm comfortable, this is where I want to stay. Mm-hmm. Where he was like, this is not enough. I need my own business. I need to provide and make sure that my girls are set. So when I look at his story, it's like, damn, dude, you literally came and my mom would stuff you in a van with us. We had a little Honda Odyssey and me and him would sit in the back. And now it's like, dude, you got whatever you want. You can make these things happen for yourself. And what it is just that dedication. It's like that hunger for like, I don't want to see that again. And I think that there's a lot of people like that. I mean, do you guys know anyone of a similar story?
Yeah, I actually do. Yeah, but do you? Yeah. So I mean, for me, I'm blessed enough to have a couple people like that in my family. One of them being my uncle, who, just like you, I met him. When I met him, we were living in his basement. He was a carpenter, worked long hours. And then one day he just decided with one of my other uncles, like, hey, why don't we start cutting trees? Because I think he heard the idea from somebody else how much they were making and stuff. So they like rented a chipper. Got a couple clients, put out some like flyers and things like that. And people started calling them. So they were like, doing small jobs and stuff like that on the weekends, and they started getting more credibility and stuff like that. And very early on, it was like definitely a struggle, for my uncle. And I remember a story where he went all the way to DC, got like a couple of his friends and other workers to cut like a huge tree down, cut the tree down, chipped the branches, took the logs, put them in the truck, took it to the dump. And then like at the end of the day, he was like paying everyone for, their hours and stuff. And, by the end of the shift, he realized that he was taking money out of his own pocket, to be able to pay for everything. And, fast forward like 4, 5, 6, 7 years, he's been doing it for quite some time now. And 3-4 years ago was the first time that he grossed $1 million with his business. Yeah. So like he has a ton of I think just his equipment alone, like trucks, chippers, cranes, cherry pickers, everything. My cousin who still works with him was saying like it has to be close to like $800,000 just in
I know
equipment
chippers
alone.
and that kind of stuff are like 6 figures. They say that farm equipment is more expensive than cars on the road. Like you see people like a Tesla, $80,000, $90,000. Guy's got a tractor that's 140 grand.
Yeah, easy. Yeah. So I mean, for me, like that was a huge inspiration, seeing entrepreneurship in my family, and it kind of definitely inspired me, and I have other uncles that are in construction, another uncle that does tree removal as well and stuff like that. So I feel like it's also in our blood, also in our DNA.
So what I was saying is that I heard this quote the other day that said, dig a hole and dig it deep. And basically it meant like pick a skill or a trade and just go deep into it and really specialize. And when you do that, you are like an expert in your field. You can charge more for your service. Yeah. So just really specialize. And I wish that was something that I learned when I was younger, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think skills. Okay, so I mean, I don't think it's true for every single skill, because there are some skills that obviously there's always people that are willing to pay for your skill. And there's actually a Bible quote that I heard the other day that says, and I'm totally paraphrasing, but it says something like, do you see a person who is, I guess, excellent or above average or really, really good at their skill or trade? It says that person will serve before kings and noblemen. Yes. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and that always rang true to me, the Bible talks about, certain people that were like completely gifted with like sculpting and like making things out of gold. And, they were the ones making things for royalty, and for kings and stuff like that, because they got really proficient at what they did.
I think that's the best word you could use is specialized. Now, so do you guys have an elevator pitch? Like when someone's like, what do you do? So in mine, because I go to network groups, I always say this is what I do, but I specialize. Like this is what I specialize in, so that people understand, okay, this guy does a lot of stuff, but what he's here focusing on is specializing in. What he wants to push out is, I specialize in paint corrections. Like this is what we do. This is what I'm good at. Like, oh, do you wrap trucks? Yeah, we could do all that. I got a guy that does that, but that's not what we specialize in. So like you said, you really want to dig that niche and say, this is what we thrive in. This is what I could do day in, day out, day and night, whatever. Eyes closed. So do you guys network?
Yeah, I definitely network. Yeah. When I talk to people about being a trainer, I have a background in Chinese medicine and herbs and nutrition, but I specialize in yoga. Yeah. Like I always say that I specialize in yoga when I train people because that's my specialty. Yeah. I weightlift too. I do all kinds of training. I eat for training, and I could tell you how to eat, but like I'm not a nutritionist. Yeah. So that's what I say.
Okay. Yeah. So you specialize. That's awesome. How's the yoga scene in California?
It's wild. These days I'm not so much a yoga teacher these days as I am a ritualist and a ceremonialist. Okay. So like these days doing more like water ceremonies, like blessing the water we're drinking with vibration. Like every day you can bless your tea, you can bless your cup of coffee, and get after it for the day. Like you could tell your bottle of water like all your intentions and then drink it. Yeah. So these days I'm doing like really deep meditative practices for the community. I love yoga and I will always be a student and teacher of yoga, but I think that ritual is really missing from the modern life. And like ceremony is really missing from modern life, especially people that are not into religion, but it's really helpful to us as humans to practice those things, even if it's just like lighting a candle on your coffee table, or maybe your workout is your ritual. Whatever that ritual is for you is important to practice.
Okay, so I remember you talking a little bit about this when we filmed like kind of an interview a while in July, was it? Yeah. And you said that you were 100% totally into that, right? And like in that, I don't know if it's been like that or that's what you were like very. But to me, it almost sounded like it was like routine or something. I guess something that kind of got you like mentally, physically, and spiritually ready to take on the whole day. I guess is that kind of how that works, or can you dive more into what you mean by that? ritualistic.
Sounds like manifestation, if I'm being honest, in a sense of like you're speaking into the world what you want to come of it.
You have to. And I think that with different personalities lean more into manifestation, like, oh, I'm going to write this down and it's going to happen. But you have to have that clear vision, and then you also have to do the work. You can't just wish things into existence. You can't just believe your goals into existence. That's just dreaming. You have to actually put the work in. And so, that's super important.
Yeah, a goal without action is only a dream.
That's right. It's just a dream. So like, anybody can have a good idea. It's who's executing, who's out there getting after it.
Yeah, and honestly, I was talking to someone yesterday who has a very successful, landscaping business, and he was telling me like you don't have to reinvent the wheel, to generate money. I mean, he's like right now it's the slow season, and he's still bringing in $6,000 a month, like just from his. He doesn't even have to be present for that money to be generating. Like his workers know their jobs, and stuff like that. And he's saying you don't have to reinvent the wheel, just know what's already working, and then kind of put in the work, do what you have to do.
Get after your goals and they will manifest. There you go. That's nice.
That's a nice one.
Yeah, and I mean, but I do believe that writing down, your goals with intentions, I think it definitely does make a big difference. I can always remember those.
What you do though is you write it down and you read it and you do it.
Yeah, I believe it.
Don't just read it and forget about it.
I've done both. I mean, I've done where like New Year's Eve, me and my sister sat down, we wrote down everything we wanted to do, completely forgot about it, found it like 3-4 years later, and like all those were ticked, you know what I mean? And then I also have like a little like chalkboard, with a calendar on it, and I things that I look at it every day. So like I have things on there that I want to think about consciously every day, and they come to pass. I remember one time I wrote on there like I want to have a $10,000 a month, you know what I mean? Couple months later, like I ended up getting a $20,000 a month, and I was like fucking blown away. Yeah, that was a long ass time ago. But I do feel like there's definitely a correlation. You know what I mean? In the beginning, I don't know why I'm getting into the Bible today.
Yeah, I knew that was Genesis. He said in the beginning.
In the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning. You gotta drop a couple tones in the voice.
When God created everything, the Bible says that He spoke it into existence. And He said, "Let there be." This, let there be that. Let the light, separate from the darkness. So everything that was created was first initiated by spoken word. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's I do believe that in being created in God's image, we are also creators. So we can also create, the life or things that we want to try to, manifest in life. But again, I
do think that you worked through. I was going to say, I think there's certain aspects I'm the exact opposite, bro. I wrote on this board back here, lose 8 pounds for the month of November. and I forgot about it until we had the Friendsgiving. Cece was like, oh, look at this. You have your goals up here. And I was like, shit, I forgot about those. It's like, damn, it's like I've actually gained a couple pounds from since the trip to Cancun, but it's like, you can't just write it down and expect it to happen. Like you said, you wrote it down, but you also went to work every day and you pushed the shit out of your product and your advertising and your marketing, and you were very strategic with how you approached your days. So just because you didn't read it every day doesn't mean you didn't already have that instilled in your mind that that's what I want to do. It's subconscious.
Yes, strategy and execution are top priority. That'll get you so far. Can't just dream. But you gotta look at it. If you put your manifestation or your affirmation somewhere you're not gonna see it. Like I like to put mine on my mirror, and then in the morning I have the same morning routine. I get up, I like scrape my tongue and I brush my teeth and like I do my mouth, and then I wash and everything. But like I do that every morning, and when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm looking at my current reminders, whatever they are. Yeah. The sticky notes. Move it to the bathroom.
There's people like one of my buddies. He's like, the first thing I bought. He bought in a house is my whiteboard.
Oh, love a whiteboard.
He's like my vision board. And also I've been meaning to put one back here. But he said the first thing that moved in the house was my whiteboard. He's like, and I got one that's like 12 foot by like fucking 6 foot or something. It takes up his whole wall in the basement. He's like, that's where you put everything. And he's like, and every morning I come into my office, the first thing I see that board, and everything on that board is what I need to achieve or what I have achieved or what's on the list of things to do. And it's like, damn, that is a visualization of like, yo, I need to get this done. Like I can't forget.
Mm-hmm. And I love going to the whiteboard after like I've had things on there for a while and erasing. reevaluating your goals is really important too. You got to be able to pivot. If you're going towards something and it's not quite working out, you got to have that discernment to say, okay, do I want to keep pushing in this direction? Is this worth it? Or do I need to pivot? Do I need to redirect whatever I'm doing? So you go back to your goals after some time. That's why they have to be in a place where you can reference them regularly, and then you can erase and you can like redo your goals or re-explore what your intentions are.
It's like constant auditing. I mean, for your goals, and even like you and I were talking about earlier, even like yourself, you got to constantly audit yourself. Like, hey, today, what happened today that I wasn't happy with? Damn, I blew up on somebody. Like I had a shit day, so I yelled at the Starbucks lady. Okay, let me be more accountable for that. Let me work on eliminating that. So it is auditing. I guess, yeah, auditing your goals too. It's like, yo, this is not working for me. Or, hey, I thought that Facebook ads would help me out, but they're not. Maybe I need a new approach. But you can't just be like, damn, it's not working. What? Oh, fuck, I suck. You know?
That audit is super important. That's part of self-awareness. Having that audit to take into account what's working for you, what's not working for you, and then getting that outside feedback, right? Like if your ads didn't bring any new clients, maybe you need to adjust your ads or adjust your target market.
Yeah. It helps you be a better you too, because I mean, honestly, there's people that aren't even aware of who they are or how they are towards people, and they live their whole life not once. I think we were talking about this earlier. You imagine if someone's like, yo, you were really rude to that person today, and you're just like, man, fuck that person, and you move along. You didn't do any sort of kind of self-check on why they said that to you. Then you live your whole life just living like that. But if you took a moment to say, damn, I wonder why Jose told me that I was really ignorant today. Like, what did I do that made him say that? Oh, I said some foul shit to someone at a restaurant. Okay, maybe I need to work on that. And that's how it begins, you know?
What kind of people do you think are people that are able to reflect versus someone who has low self-awareness? What separates the individual that can reflect upon themselves versus someone that is unable to see, what's going on, where their flaws are?
I think it's, honestly, if I had to say, it'd probably be like someone's like self-value. That makes sense. People think they're untouchable, or think that like it's my way and it's always going to be my way and there's no one else around me. Like those kinds of people where it's like, man, fuck that person. They say like, if you run into an asshole one day, you ran into an asshole. But if you run into 100 assholes one day, you're probably the asshole. It's those people that have no conscience of like, just because you do feel great doesn't mean that you are greater than everyone.
What about you? Do you think it's deeper than that? What are your thoughts on people who are more reflective versus those that can't see their flaws as clearly when they're brought to their attention?
I mean, I might have to bring this back to the whole being reactive thing. I guess like if you can criticize someone and quickly there's 10 reasons why it's not their fault. You know what I mean? There's usually something where they're not comfortable like self-evaluating. You know what I mean? They're more like thinking, okay, well, that person approached me that, so he deserved for me to talk to them like that. I don't know. I'm not sure.
You guys are more reflective than the average person. Okay, so we're going to start there as a baseline. What makes you feel grounded and able to reflect on yourself and audit your life? Like versus a day where, like if you have a really tough day, how would you go about self-reflection and auditing your life?
Damn, I mean, do you really want to know? I think it's because I've seen the ups and downs in my life. So I actually just recently learned, and we're going to get a little deep here, guys, so don't judge me. But I actually just learned this about myself is when I am in like low energies or like low moods, I have a very hard time getting back from those. Like very hard time. I always preach like, yo, it's a bad moment, not a bad day. It's a bad, you've removed yourself, great, move along. But like I've realized being put in those situations, I have a hard time getting out of those. So like I do a lot of self-reflecting and self-adjustment to make sure like, okay, what did I do to put myself in this position? How did I speak or how did I act that allowed, this to happen, and how can I avoid that or how can I eliminate that? Also, who am I surrounded by? Is it people that enable me to become like thinking I'm hot shit or thinking less of me? Like it's my surroundings, but also myself, right? So like my biggest adjustments are I need to mitigate any sort of negative energy or even places or situations or people that allow me to get to that level. You know, like I'm big on, I don't call women bitches. I think that's not, I don't know. We grew up listening to rap music. Oh, bitch, this, that. And it's like, now it's like, dude, that's like it's a form of deprecation towards someone. Even your friends. Like, I don't go around talking to my friends like, oh, you're a piece of shit, bro. You know, stuff like that. But I think if I'm listening to the music and it's making me feel like, yeah, fuck everybody, it's like, nah, I can't be doing that shit, bro. I'll put on my country music because I can't allow myself to be put in positions where I'm feeling like, I don't know, my emotion can become detrimental to how I feel either about myself or about the places I'm around. So my self-check is also, it's always going to be to minimize any sort of negativity in my life so that I can remain up here. I'm always, hey, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. You know, how you doing? How's your day? I'll go to Chick-fil-A. Hey, can I have your order? Hey, how you doing today? I'm great. That's awesome. I love to hear it because I want to spread that little bit of positivity so that I can get it back from the world. Because like I said, if you're not aware of that, you may feel like your life is shit. It's really just you are not at your highest, you know, vibrations too. So I think that's what allows me to self-audit is to avoid being like mentally and emotionally down here. I'm not trying to be down here. I'm trying to ride high. I want to surround myself with people that are like, damn, you the fucking man, bro. You know, I said this earlier. I want people to elevate me because I love elevating people and I love being up here. I don't handle these well. So I don't like if I got a day here, it's like, fuck, what did I do that day? Oh, I went to the fucking this store and I hated it. Never going back there, you know?
Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, could you just repeat the question one more time?
Okay. The question is, being that I personally believe you guys are outstanding men, very reflective men, what do you think separates you and gives you the ability to be that reflective and gives you that ability to audit yourself, audit a bad day, audit your life in general to redirect your goals?
I don't know if it's because I have two sisters or what, and I know you have sisters as well, but you know, I feel like I've always been like, I guess you could say hyperly empathetic, you know, like if I offend someone, I'm like, damn, why did I offend her? Like what happened? Like yesterday we were here with someone and like, you know, I guess I said a comment to someone last night. And one of my other friends was like, oh, you're being an asshole to that guy. So like the whole night I would ask like 4 people like, hey, do you think I was rude to that guy? Like, did I say something? You know, I feel like being empathetic and kind of putting myself in other people's shoes definitely does help me kind of be careful of like, you know, this might also have to do a little bit with the pushover thing, but I try not to like if someone's new and I can tell they're uncomfortable, I try to be, you know, extra like, oh, like make sure they're welcome, make sure they're having a good time. You know what I mean? And as far as like self-auditing, I'll be honest, I feel like that's something that I could definitely improve on. I always do think about like, where do I want to be? And then it's so easy to think about your goals, you know, when you're like looking at your vision board, we're talking about that, right? But then on your day to day, sometimes you're doing things that aren't aligning, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like for me right now, like one of my biggest struggles is like just being on my phone way too long. Like sometimes like if I don't have a busy day, I'll like wake up late and like scroll, you know, for way too long and stuff like that. But like I'll realize it. And like right now I'm doing a plan about like doing like a dopamine detox where I'm like limiting, like it's like a 4-step thing, right? Like the first thing is like limiting your screen time to 1 hour. So that's something that I'm going to try to do for a week. Wake up every morning and do 15 minutes of meditation, you know, because my issue right now, like I said, is focus. I feel like I'm not being able to focus on what I want. So I'm trying to do something that might, you know, a dopamine fast, which might bring me back to speed where I want to be. You know what I mean? I'm not really sure if that answers the question, but I mean,
it's self-auditing, bro.
Those are some good practices for sure.
Do you feel like you have just too much dopamine flowing in you, like in a sense of?
I think we're overstimulated and it's become such a normal thing, you know, like you know, we can mindlessly just open social media, mindlessly scroll. You know, a lot of times the first thing we do when we wake up is check our phone, check our notifications, you know what I mean? And it's just so easy to do that. And like I said, I've noticed myself, like when I'm starting to edit, I always get this urge when I know I should be locked in and like focusing on this. I'm like, oh, check my phone, you know, edit for like 10 minutes. And then I'm like checking my notifications, you know, edit for 30 minutes. I'm like seeing who messaged me, you know, but I want to be able to have a lot more self-control, you know, in like, not just like with that, but with my ability to be like, hey, I'm cutting off all distractions, you know, and I'm focusing on this one task until I get it done. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, escapism also, our phones could be a form of it. We can just, I don't know.
We can really get deep in the rabbit hole of scrolling, and you get on your phone with just intention to check things out, and there's so much, honestly, like trash content out there. There's so much like, I'm watching a guy dig a hole in the jungle and build a cabin at 3 a.m. We've all seen it. Like, come on. Yeah. So it's important to consume content and media that supports your vibration, because you can get into this trap of comparing yourself. So easy. It's not worth it, And like you were talking earlier about how you speak about yourself, this was something that came up for me maybe like 5-6 weeks ago. Like, being around people and having them speak in a self-deprecating way is like so triggering to me, because it's something that I worked so hard to overcome. And this is something called neuro-linguistic programming. NLP, right? Like,
studied that for a little bit.
So NLP is neuro, right? Like your brain, linguistic, talking, and then programming, just like we program a computer. So if you're constantly saying like, oh, I'm such a dummy for making that mistake, you're going to fulfill that prophecy of being a dummy. Or like, sometimes us girls, we want to like get thick in the gym, right? And you're working out, you're like not seeing results. You're like, man, I'm just never going to get XYZ, I'm never going to fulfill this goal that I have to get bigger biceps or whatever it is. If you say that out loud, you're also like putting that into the air, like you're putting that into the ether. Imagine telling other people. I heard this thing that said, if 2 people are working toward the same goal, it will manifest quicker.
I believe that 1,000%. So
like you guys coming together, doing your podcast, boom, it just boom came together. But imagine if I'm telling you my flaws and you're listening to me as an empathetic friend, you're going to believe me. Mm-hmm. So unintentionally, we might be manifesting more issues for me. Yeah. So you never want to put out that kind of negativity, because 1, it makes other people uncomfortable, and 2, you're reinforcing those things into your subconscious. Now, I'm not saying hold everything in, but maybe like journal it, get it out, and then burn that piece of paper. Yeah.
It's cool you say that, because I'm that guy. Like, I am that. I hate like taking shots at people. So if someone says something, like, I beg, instead of saying, oh yeah, it's because you're fucking whack. So, oh yeah, bro, it's because I'm fucking whack. Like, I turn it towards myself. So that I don't inflict that on someone else. But that's also dangerous itself too, because now I'm self-deprecating. Like, I remember I was on the phone like 2-3 weeks ago, and I was like, oh yeah, someone was talking about some shit, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm trash anyway, so fuck it. Like, whoa, why'd you say you were trash? And I was like, yeah, it was like a simple joke, and like, nah, now you made me wonder why you think you're trash. And it's like, what the fuck?
You would never say that in business.
Yeah, no.
You would never go into business if you're like trying to get a sponsorship as an influencer. You'd never be like, mentioning all your flaws to sell yourself. So like, why put that out there? Yeah. What happens is, I read this somewhere. If I show up and I'm like, oh my God, sorry guys, my hair's not good enough for the podcast. It's like, that tells you guys I don't accept my own hair. Mm-hmm. That tells you guys that if you guys have a flaw, I'm not going to accept your flaw either. And I'm going to judge you too. Yeah. So like, judging myself will project to me judging others. So you just got to be really gentle with yourself and build that relationship with yourself first, to trust yourself and, love your flaws. Even if you're working on them, you can be a work in progress. You know where you're at. You have that self-awareness, but you don't got to always like project it out there. Yeah. You should project the good stuff. Like, I'm working on this, and, this is where I've had success recently. Like, those are great conversations. People want to be involved in those kind of conversations.
Yeah, that goes a long way, being comfortable and loving of yourself. Like I said, this year's been it's been a year of new experiences for me. Like, I'm 28 years old, right? And never in my whole life has anyone come at my height. Like, I'm 5'6", right? I don't give a shit. I'm 5'6", bro. I've been 5'6". Like, I'm never going to be taller, maybe 5'7" if I did like a back correction, right? But this year, there's been people like, damn. Like, it's not even my people. It's people around the people that I'm around. It's like, yo, that man's short. And it's like, bro, why does that matter?
They're coming for you because you got that big energy.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, dude, I don't give a fuck, bro. Like, this, I am where I am, dude. Like, I walk around with friends that are like 6'3", and it's like, bro, you think I'm worried about it? Like, I who gives a shit? But yeah, like you said, if I allowed myself to think that poorly of myself, that would really be detrimental to my life. You can't allow yourself to your flaws are your flaws, but I mean, they don't have to be flaws. They could just be, it's you who you are, right? It's like your skin. You can't change it. You can't be like, oh, I fucking hate this shit, I'm gonna cut it off. No, yo, embrace that shit.
You should embrace who you are. You should embrace who you are. I mean, you can always improve, but you should really love all those parts of yourself, you know, especially the parts that are hidden. We talk about this a lot in like spiritual development is the shadow. And the shadow can be the negative triggers that come up. Like, let's say you call me something, I find it offensive, and it triggers me back to when I was a child and something similar happened. That can be your shadow. But what also can be your shadow is parts of yourself that you've neglected. So let's say like I wanted to be a dancer as a child or something, but I had to stuff that away. That could be a part of my shadow. So maybe when I go out and have a good time, if I honor my shadow, I might like really start dancing when I feel comfortable, because you can allow that part of yourself to heal when you honor it and expose it. So the shadow can be good parts of yourself. It can also be negative parts of yourself. Yeah. And that's often lost in shadow work. People often talk really loosely about shadow work, but shadow work is the parts of yourself that were like pushed away and into the shadows, essentially.
Yeah. Do you think that's also like mental blocks? Is that where do those kind of get pushed into a shadow, or is that more of like a just?
I think that's self.
Out,
I think, in my opinion, when you encounter mental blocks, those are self-limiting beliefs, like Jose was referencing before. A self-limiting belief is something you might explore in your first few rounds of therapy. If anybody like goes to therapy, if you start like one of the first sets of exercises they'll put you on will be a limiting beliefs exercise, and essentially you'll list everything, like you'll go through these affirmations of like what you identify with. If you identify with not being enough, if you identify with not being intelligent, if you identify with negative things, it could be that when you were little, somebody told you that and it got stuck in your programming, because we're so moldable when we're young. Yeah. And so then you grow up and you have this limiting belief, like you can never be XYZ, and it becomes a metaphorical ceiling, a glass ceiling for you. So when you talk about mental blocks, I believe that mental blocks are typically limiting belief systems that need to be broken.
Yeah. But like, so to break it, you'd have to reach into that shadow work, like you said, right? That's when it basically you need to dive into the shadow works to find those and like you said, work on them. Because if not, then they just remain back there. But they'll always be there. You just won't really understand why until you dive deep into it.
Yeah, they say if you shine the light on the shadow, you can illuminate it and it can come out. And only after you dig it out can you heal it.
Yeah, but that's the biggest thing is dig it out. That's why I was thinking. I was like, dude, because there's a lot of my childhood I don't remember. And it's like, damn, is that mental blockage where you do need to shine a light on these parts of your life? And I guess, like you said, therapy could be very eye-opening for people. And if I've never seen a therapist, I probably should though, just for my own health, you know.
I'm gonna keep it real with you. I'm gonna keep it real with the folks at home. I did like a year of therapy, and you know, the generations older than me was like, oh, no therapy. But then like the millennials and younger, it's like, oh, I got my therapist on speed dial, you know, so it's a little more open. So I was a little bit like hesitant to try it, and then I somebody came to me and was like, hey, like I think you should try therapy, and I was like, all right, let's do it. So I did, and not working with that therapist anymore. It wasn't a good fit after some time. She would like let me get away with everything. But what I will say is through the spiritual community and like spiritual practices and yoga practices, what I've found is some really deep therapeutic workshops. For example, like a shaking workshop, and you'll like shake yourself out and like maybe work on certain memories or triggers. And that has been some of the best therapy I've ever experienced. Or like you might journal and then do a certain meditation or like practice where they guide you through something with your body. And that's by far been the most healing stuff for me, in addition to psychedelics.
Okay, I'm glad. And I'm actually really happy that we're touching on this, because I'm a huge proponent. Like, I mean, someone told me, like Danny, I haven't been in therapy. I do want to go to therapy, you know, just because someone that I look up to told me, you know, it's healthy. You know what I mean? You go to a doctor for your physical, you know what I mean? Why don't you go for a therapist for your mental health as well? But I believe that there's a lot of traumas and a lot of things that have happened, that could happen to a person that you can't just heal by talking about it. Like it's a spiritual trauma, it's a spiritual wound, you know what I mean? And if you like scrape your knee or if you get like a gash on your arm, you don't expect it to be healed in a week or two, it needs to scab over. You got to make sure you're attending the wound or else it get infected, and it's the same thing with like spiritual traumas, you usually when you go through a traumatic experience, you shouldn't expect it to be healed in a day or two or things like that. And just talking about it sometimes can work, but there has to be a way to release that energy as well, and that's where I've never heard of these called it shaking. Anyways, well, we were just talking about like, how like a lot of times men don't really talk to each other about their problems or like aren't really, like usually don't have anyone to go to, when there are issues. So I was kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, but me, I feel like I am really fortunate to have people in my life where I can kind of just like before when I used to try to vent, I always felt like it was a burden, or like I didn't want them to know my issues or stuff like that. But I feel like I have people around me, men around me that I can literally just be like, hey, this is happening to me right now. And they don't even have to give me commentary. Obviously, they'll give me advice, especially if I'm asking for it. But just the fact that they could just listen. That's a good Yeah, that to me is huge. And honestly, watching like TikToks and stuff where, guys, like it's like a 10, 20, 30 people, like the question was like, oh, men, who do you go to when you have problems? And it was like 20 dudes in a row. Like, I'm a fucking man. Like, we don't talk about our problems.
Go to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to a girl the other day that's like newly dating somebody, and she shared with me, like, in her words, she said, like, I don't even mind a guy that plays video games. And I was like, wow, that's so weird because, like, you're such a go-getter. Like, I want to understand your philosophy. Why do you say that? And she was like, well, think about it. Guys have, like, no outlet for social connection and, like, emotional support. And they get on these games. And, yeah, they might be on for, like, 6 or 10 hours. But if they have a healthy relationship with it, they're connecting with other men and they talk to them about real things while they're on the game. And I was like, wow, I didn't even realize that. That's just another example of how women don't understand what men go through. Like, we have our gal pal, we'll call her up and vent about our situation, but like guys don't necessarily have that.
Yeah, it's crazy you say that because as men, we try to trickle it into life so that it comes subtly and it's like a natural conversation without people, like you said. So we'll be on the games, right? And this is actually, I'm pretty sure how this podcast was like created in my head, right? It'll be like Jose and I and like a couple other friends in lobbies, and it's literally we're not together, but we're together in our we're here, right? We got the headset on, we're talking, and it's like you just talk shit, be like, damn, like da 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 da, like yo, so today, man, and the next thing you know, we're talking. Like the game is cool, we're winning, we're losing, whatever. Sometimes we're focused, but a lot of it is really just kind of talking to each other about your day, about your goals, and it's like, yo, hear me out. You want to start a podcast, bro? Off topic, we stay on topic, we go off topic, and then you got the feedback from here because. We got friends that are married with kids. We got friends that are just always working. They don't have time to come hang out.
Right.
So it is our outlet to, hey, yo, put your headset on, bro. 7:00, we'll play for a couple hours. And then guess what? Ideas are created, or people vent, or it's like, damn, yo, like this happened, yo, today I made a big sale, yo, this is awesome, yo, congrats, bro, let's fucking go.
And they don't have to leave their house. They don't have to leave their family. Yeah. Like if they have a family and they're married with kids, the wife's not like alone. She, her husband's not going out. It's like he's here on the game and he can have the kids with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cool. I think that's one of the biggest outlets. People don't realize that gaming is cool itself, but it's the actual interactions with that, or even new people. Dude, we met a lot of cool new people. You go on there, people just talking shit. It's like, where are you from? I'm from England. It's like, oh, that's what's up, bro. Tell me about it. Like, what's it like over there? And next thing you know, you're talking to a stranger that you would have never imagined you're talking to from a whole different country about their life, about your life. And it's like, dude, life is deeper than you and me. Life is deeper than right here. There's millions, I'm going to speak it into existence, of people on the other side of this camera that don't even know us, but they're listening. They are now a part of our life. They're here with us right now. It's crazy.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, punch.
No.
No, well, cats are crazy because we were talking about earlier. So I love the reason I got a cat. People don't realize, and I think Josie, you might have that thing too. You keep calling him her, right? People think cats are like these little felines, and it's like, dude, that right there is like a baby lion, and he's got to learn discipline too. So
yeah, I trained my cats too. Actually, one of my cats fetches. I taught her. It's called bring. I say bring, and she brings me her mouse.
That's awesome.
And I throw it, and she knows all the words because I train my dogs with words too. Animals can hear, and they learn. If you talk to an animal, they'll learn from you. And people are like, oh, they don't know English or whatever. Actually, my neighbor's dog speaks strictly Spanish.
Yeah. And we knew a guy that had a Doberman that spoke Russian.
Yeah.
He only responded in Russian,
commands.
Yeah, like, come here, sit down, lay down. But he spoke it all in Russian, so it's like I'll try to talk to the dog, like, sit. He's like, that's not it, man. That's not it. It's like, damn,
Yeah, like I'm sitting here telling the dog up front, ja, stop. This dog's always barking. We were talking a little bit about alternative therapies basically, and like stuff like that.
Yeah. I was about to bring it back into that. I'm glad you brought it back. So I mean, I've done my due diligence when it comes to psychedelics, research and also, live experimentation. But I've seen so many, like people who have been smoking 15, 20 years, go on one psychedelic trip, and all of a sudden all their cravings are gone. Like they don't want to, they could smoke, but they don't want it. They don't feel that craving to anymore. So, I mean, and also people that, have like traumas and stuff like that, like psychedelics have shown to improve PTSD, you know what I mean? People that, have suicidal thoughts. I'm not saying that one glove fits all what is the saying? One size fits all. But I do think that there is untapped potential in psychedelics that, because there's probably not a lot of profitability in psychedelics as far as like medicine goes. I don't think a lot of people pay attention to it, but I do believe I'm a big advocate for especially mental health things. I feel like it.
Well, that could be because it's been illegal for so long. I'm pretty sure 2 states just made it legal this past year. And the biggest thing, there's 2 conversations with that. Oh man, y'all better have a bunch of druggies and overdoses. And the other conversation that I wasn't aware of, I was very ignorant to it until I spoke to someone with knowledge about it. Like you do understand that psychedelics can be helpful and beneficial in life. What they've done by legalizing it is allowed doctors and pharmacies and people to now study it. Right. Because it's like you said, it's so untouched. It hasn't been studied before. You can't tell me it can cure PTSD, even though it's been proven to. Even like weed can help people with seizures, there's no like, oh, this is backed by these labs or this scientist, because actually, it's not legal.
You might be surprised, bro. They're actually, I want to say that in the 50s and 60s, but I think it was banned in the 70s or the 80s. But there hasn't been. But dude, they were making leaps and bounds, bro. Like they were trying for all kinds of different things. But like I said, because companies couldn't really write a patent on psychedelics or LSD, especially when LSD was invented, or big corporations, big pharma couldn't really be like, oh, I own the rights or the patent to LSD or to, whatever. So there's not a lot of profitability or incentive. And beyond that, I also think, and this, I don't have my conspiracy hat yet. I'm ordering one online. But I do think that when you do psychedelics, you do become more of an independent thinker. You become more of a free thinker. And, when you are an independent thinker, it's harder for governments to be able to kind of control you. If they don't, even our education system has literally been trained us to respect authority, don't question authority. You're told what time it is. The bell rings, you sit, for however long until the bell dismisses you type of thing, And then I could go really deep into that also, but I'll let you guys speak.
I think I want to speak to a little bit deeper than like government. I think that it's eye opening. I mean, one biggest thing that I saw about it was Mike Tyson. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever listened to saw Mike Tyson, but he said it's like an ego death. It's like it's a life check for yourself. It's like, dude, he's like everyone should try some sort of psychedelic. He does like the DMT and what's ayahuasca and even shrooms, like stuff like that. I've actually personally never encountered live encounters, had any of that stuff. I have a small fear of like I got a lot of negative thoughts in my head that might overcloud me and just fuck my day up. But realistically, I mean, I don't know. Is that something that you guys think that? I mean, obviously, I think we all agree that it's something that should be more open for discussion, at least.
I can say that assisted therapy, whether it's under the form of psychedelics or another medium, is so helpful to healing trauma. Like working with a professional one-on-one through something specific is so valuable and can really allow breakthroughs, because you're telling your brain, I'm physically going to work on this thing. I'm mentally going to work on this thing, this XYZ. And maybe that day you don't come like full circle, but you make progress. And then every day after that, your progress will continue. So it can start with anything. But what you're seeing these days with psychedelic use, with mushroom use, with even ketamine use, there's assisted therapy. So for example, in Los Angeles, they have this company essentially where you go and, I mean, I think it's in DC, I think it's in other areas. So there are these companies where you'll go, and if you have PTSD and you want to work on it, or you have this like traumatic event and you want to work on it, you can go to these ketamine facilities and they'll do therapy in conjunction with the drug. And so for psychedelics like mushrooms, they're moving toward that. And there are some facilitators like that, but it's a bit more of a shamanic experience at this point. It's not like a clinical experience. And now with it becoming legalized, it's opening the door for those clinical experiences. So I think that's so valuable. I mean, I'll ask you guys if you want to share, but if you guys want to share, like what psychedelics have you done? You know,
I haven't done any. I smoked some marijuana back in the day, but that's as far as that goes.
Yeah, I've taken some mushrooms here and there, some small doses, and then I've also taken mushrooms as a tea. And so when you're eating mushrooms, it's kind of like a slow like experience. But when you take mushrooms as a tea, it's like roller coaster. It's like very intense experience. And I had taken mushrooms at that capacity, that more intense threshold, several years ago after a really traumatic experience, and it definitely helped me to move forward. Definitely, like I think that was like really serving me at that time.
Do you think that, like, I don't know, does it help you like lock into something and figure that out at that moment? Or how does that, because you always hear about it and people's like, oh, I'm just trying to trip, you know. They don't ever talk about I'm trying to face things that I haven't really dealt with.
I always, and this is something I've always said, is that obviously people will do psychedelics, people will do most any drug recreationally, you know, but I always say try to do it with intention, you know, like whether that's like, for me, like I know it sounds weird, but whenever I would trip, I would always like start writing notes and just like, you know, things like that. And I would sometimes text.
We'd have deep conversations. It'd be like 3 a.m. We're talking about like some really deep shit, and I'm like, first of all, why am I awake right now, right? Like I'm home in bed, just like talking to Jose, and he's like, yo, I can't lie to you, bro. He's like, he's like, I'm tripping right now, and I'm just speaking my mind. I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, all right, bro, I'm here for it. Let's keep talking about it. Like, it is funny.
Oh yeah, I went through like a little like rave phase. I guess you could say that. I mean, I mean, when I would go to these raves, I would obviously, you know, I would say it was more recreational, but like I remember I don't know, like the first time I remember really tripping, and like I was, you know, I didn't know when you take LSD or acid, you know, that you're not going to sleep, you know. So I was at a festival and like, you know, I took LSD. It was like 8, and then like 11 o'clock rolled around. You know, I'm still, you know, having an experience, and I'm like, let me try to get some sleep. And I like literally laid down for 1 second. And I stood back up like, I'm not getting any sleep. I stayed up the whole night, and like while I was watching the sunrise, I don't know why, but it felt like such an epiphany, like realizing like every single day is a new day, like a new opportunity. Like it feels like all the days are the same, but like every single day is, I don't know why. It's kind of hard to explain, but I really felt like I was being born, like I was waking up for the very, very first time, you know, like in my life. And it was a really weird experience, but it made me feel like I needed to be way more intentional with everything in my life. Obviously, you know, you still get lost in your day to day, but in that moment, it just feels so intense that it like marks you for, you know, for life, honestly. Yeah,
It definitely marks you for life. When I was, how old was I? Like 20, 21, 22, something like that. I smoked DMT, and I had a really beautiful experience, and I definitely blasted off, you know.
I had a breakthrough the first time.
Yeah. They say that when that medicine comes to you, it's coming to you. Like I didn't seek it out. Someone said, I have this, you want to try it with us? And we went to a lakeside. We went to the reservoir here. It's many years ago. I don't know if the reservoir is still around. Anyway.
Yeah, some people died and they shut it down.
So we went to the reservoir, and I did a chakra meditation for the girl and I that were doing it. And we took it. We had like a someone that was training as a shaman. He watched over us. And the way I describe it is I exited my body, kind of like blasted up above the earth, or that's what I was seeing. And I was just engulfed by unconditional love. It was like a big warm blanket. And all of the variations of myself, my child self, my adult self, my older self were all there. All my ancestors were all there. And they basically just said, like, everything's going to be all right. Everything's okay on the other side. And when I left that experience, I definitely had what a lot of people experience as ego death. Yeah. My sense of self was, I didn't have that separation of I am I and you are you. And what they say is actually the part of your brain that is associated with identity becomes less active. So that's why you have that ego death, because different parts of your brain are lighting up instead of that primary center that's like your identity of self. So that's the ego death experience. And then when I came back down and I settled down, I definitely felt like I touched the other side, whatever that means. Yeah. That was my experience. And I always tell people that it's like if you get a computer and you download a new software and your brain is upgraded to version 2.0, that's kind of like what a deep psychedelic experience is like. And a lot of people are afraid of it, so I would say only go at it at your level of comfortability. Yeah. Don't force it. But you also never know what your capabilities are on the other side. You never know like what potential you can explore after you have those breakthroughs where you do feel limitless and you do feel like your life experience is so valuable.
Yeah, I mean 100%, because I do think that we only use a small percentage of our brain, and one of the biggest things they say psychedelics does is it helps activate or wake up the parts that aren't normally used, and that's what makes you feel that sense.
Yeah, that was literally going to be my next point, and they've done like brain scans of people while they're under psychedelic influence, and like really what's happening is parts of your brain. I mean, there's something called neuroplasticity, right? Where your brain is able to form brand new connections. And when you're under the influence of psychedelics, you're able to make connections in your brain that would never, ever happen, unless you were firing on all 6 cylinders. Your brain, parts of your brain that normally wouldn't activate at the same time are activated under psychedelics a lot of times. So you're able to like have a heightened sense of like an acute, people will say, colors are brighter. I could hear things, I can smell things way differently because you do have a heightened sense of awareness. And yeah, I mean, it impacts the brain. Like I said, you're making brand like connections that you would never really make unless you were, under the influence of a psychedelic drug.
Yeah, it's definitely time for me to have another experience. It's calling me. I take a little microdose of mushroom because like the chocolates are really easy to get in LA. Huh?
I was gonna say we literally just tried that before you got here. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it was. Okay, I don't think it was any. I think it was an edible or something. Because I don't.
Yeah. One of my buddies like, "You ever had shrooms?" Like, nah. He's like, "Yo, try this," and I was like, "Josie, you want to split that, bro?" Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like you said, if it's calling you, I think that's awesome. I've never done it, but it is in the works. Jose always tells me that we should go to Arizona or where's it, New Mexico or somewhere to find a shaman to do like DMT and really.
There's actually so DMT is like the street cousin of ayahuasca. Do we want to get the cat in the bag?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's fine. I'll wait a sec. So DMT is like the street cousin of ayahuasca is what they say, and there's different variations of DMT. But when you take ayahuasca, it's a little different. And so ayahuasca, I believe, is a drink, and they do it in combination with other plant medicine, and you have a shaman, and oftentimes you'll have a group, a support group in a safe space. But in ayahuasca ceremonies, when you sit with the elders, you sit with a shaman, someone to guide you, it's like a 3-part series or something. It's like a series. Like you don't just sit with the medicine once. You do it like 3 nights in a row or something like that, 2 or 3 nights in a row. So like you have your first layer of breakthrough that's probably hella intense. And then you do another session and another session. So each time you're really peeling back the layers and going deeper. So for me, that's that's calling to me next.
Wow, that sounds really, because I don't know about you, but after like if I do, typically I'll try to do a psychedelic earlier in the day so that I'm able to like sleep at night, but it's like exhausting. Like it's literally, you physically feel exhausted, mentally obviously you're exhausted, and like I always by the end of the night I'm like, damn, like sometimes you're even wondering like what just happened, I actually, I'm not even sure if I should say this, but like I did LSD one time with my sister, just because she was curious, and like I would rather have her trip with me than somebody that she's never tripped with, and like she was having, I gave her half a dosage, whatever, and we were just like, watching a movie. We were watching Doctor Strange, actually, of all movies. But like, and just to kind of tell you like how much influence it had, like while she was watching the movie, spoiler alert, in the movie he was like hyper materialistic, and then like he ends up going to like almost like a shaman, and he realized that there's a whole metaphysical, reality that exists beyond the physical borders. And like my sister was like I guess she was just so under the influence or whatever, that she was like literally thinking like, I'm gonna sell everything I own and like just live in peace. Like I just, that's all I care about right now, and stuff like that. So I mean, it just goes to show like how influential, or like I guess how much impressionable you can be also while under psychedelics and stuff like that too. Do this for Dan's. I think we need to.
It's on my bucket list, bro. It's on my bucket list.
Maybe I'll come back with some chocolate from LA. But actually, when I would take my shrooms here, we would make a tea out of it. And tea, the tea be having you talk to the aliens. Yeah. But actually, all right. The elves. Yeah, the elves. Let me just circle back though. I will also say that one time I tripped doing heavy breath work at a festival, and I was working with a shamanic group. It's like a guy and like 4 chicks. They're all wearing white, and they had us doing Kundalini breathing. It's very similar to holotropic breathing. You can learn this stuff online. But I'd been practicing with my yoga practice for a few years before I stumbled upon this workshop at the festival. And so we sat there and breathed and breathed and breathed on cue at this certain rhythm. And then like all of a sudden, like I just started feeling every single emotion. I was laughing, I was crying, I was orgasming, all at the same time. And I'm just like rocking and I'm like digging my hands into the earth. And it was such a transformative experience, completely sober or like no drugs. Yeah. But when you breathe like that, it can get you into a state of releasing that DMT in your brain. Mm-hmm. So that experience, touching that without any drugs, was so powerful for me. It's like, what are the limits we can push in this physical body, Yeah.
Or what are the limits it puts itself into for some reason? Because think about that. You unlocked all that while doing breathing exercises. Yeah. Oxygen. So, I mean, I know the body thrives off oxygen, but if you, like, it's almost like a cheat code.
Yeah, something like
a video
that.
game, in your video game, you got cheat codes and you unlock something that has always been there, just never activated.
And why do you think, I mean, obviously people know how to do it. Somebody knows how to do it. Yeah. So why are these things not taught in schools, right? Why are these things not taught in mainstream education? Yeah, hold on, put his conspiracy hat back. All right, no, let's just rhetorical. That one was rhetorical. Let's not get no strikes.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in the school systems that aren't taught that make you wonder.
I mean, that goes to me, honestly, that goes back to the whole like independent thinking, listening to authority. I mean, I actually did, I'm not even going to go into the whole spew, but the way that we actually got our American form of education, is from Horace Mann. Yeah, Horace Mann is the founder of American education. Okay. Started American education in 1836. He was the first board of education president, leader. Basically, he got the way that we learn from Prussia, which is now modern day Germany, and like the way that the Prussians established education was like, how can we make people loyal to us, to the government, loyal, to the king? How can we make sure that if we send them to war, that they won't question us? You know what I mean? Like, how can we pretty much program these people, condition them from a young age to listen to authority, so when that they're adults, they'll know the drill pretty much.
And then to expand on that, I'd like to add that during the Industrial Revolution, we Americanized it further. So we would tailor the schools so that we would produce factory workers. So it's like you got that layer, which I didn't know about, and then you have this industrial revolution layer where we just churn out people who can work in factories.
Think about it, bro. You go into a classroom, 9 a.m. The rings. You're told when you go to lunch. You're told pretty much how to think, what to think, and then the bell dismisses you again, bro. That's the perfect conditions for you to be in a factory. Oh, the whistle goes off, boom, you're in a factory. Lunchtime, 12 o'clock. So you're pretty much conditioned at a young age to work, like he said, and that's not serving, the world that we live in today. I mean, it's outdated.
Just about to say, because we spoke about this,
in so many different
levels.
We spoke
about this on our other podcast, but it was like we're living in an age where technology is booming so much that we're breaking out of the same habits and rhythms that we once had. Because like you said, we used to be the 9 to 5 and shit. That's actually how I met Jackie. So we had that. We used to work together. And it was that like your rhythm. You come in, you clock out. But nothing about it. There's a lot of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of people that are influencers. There's a lot of people that, there's a lot of people that are finding not just business, but habits or routine through social media or things that are expanding that allow you to even work later or come in earlier, or you shoot your videos at 4 a.m, or you start fasting so you don't eat at noon like everyone used to think. Like 12 o'clock is lunchtime. Now it's like, you skip it, or you eat it earlier, you eat it later.
The paradigms are shifting again. There's definitely a paradigm shift, and it's also something that you referenced earlier was that self-awareness. Like people are more self-aware and into self-development. Like we were discussing boundaries before, and you're like, I didn't start hearing about this until recently. Like this wasn't in our peer conversations, but now people are becoming so aware because of the state of the world. We need to elevate. So there is a paradigm shift happening.
Wake up.
Yeah, it's time.
It's like we're stuff we're not learning in the schools, but it's stuff that, the internet it's touchable. Everything is almost touchable. So, if you have the people that are teaching that breathing or discussing psychedelics and they're making videos like these or they're making podcasts, I'm sure there's plenty of them, and we dive into those. Now we've expanded our knowledge through them. So that just because it's not in the school system doesn't mean that we don't have access to it. It's all about just understanding that we have access to these things. Yeah, it's almost like the financial system or real estate. You have access. As long as you have access to this knowledge, the world is limitless.
Yeah. You can learn anything online.
Yeah, I'm YouTube certified in a lot of things. I'm a mechanic.
Yeah.
Shit, Josie learned neurolinguistic programming off of YouTube and books. He studied an LP. He taught me a bunch of stuff. So.
He's so good.
Yeah, it's a wise man right there.
Good at it. Jiu-jitsu.
He learned jiu-jitsu off YouTube. How to make. One thing y'all don't know about Jose. Jose once wrote a song. Strictly off of YouTube. He learned how to use GarageBand and edit it, and he wrote the song called "Beautiful," and it was like the great. I swear on everything. If that song was like on Spotify, it'd have billions of streams. It was the dopest song. But it's all just. I'm just saying, it's like you just
play it in the back.
And that'd be dope. I try to find it. He deleted it, but yeah, like you said, it's you can learn a lot off of the internet. Like I said, I'm YouTube certified. A lot of things, shit I don't know how to do. I'm just like, YouTube real quick.
When I was first learning yoga before I got my training, I was like such a tough girl. But I was so anxious and awkward to go to the studios and practice because everyone was more advanced than I was. So I learned yoga on YouTube at first before I got the confidence to go into a studio and attempt to practice with other people.
Yeah, and you walked in there with knowledge.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they were expecting you, like a lot of people. There was a time when you'd walk in and it'd be like, okay, so she knows absolutely nothing. We start from ground zero. But I'm sure that, like you said, that the times are shifting. I'm sure that now people have at least understood. When I was selling cars in 2016, clients would come in knowing more about cars than I knew. And it's because they did the research. Like, what's the cubic inch space on this trunk? And I'm like, what the fuck? Who asks that? Yeah. She's like, I read online it was 72.68. Like, I just want to make sure that's... I'm like, damn, dude. Like,
how would you handle that situation where you don't know the answer?
I always say, look, I was going to say, hey, look, let me confirm I have the right numbers and I'm going to bring them right back to you. I never want to give a false answer because I think she was checking me on, like fact checking me on. I would just keep it. I said, look, I'm not 100%, but let me get that right answer to you, and then I'll bring it to you as soon as I find that out. Or like, let me confirm before I say I gave you an answer. Because one thing you don't want to do is look like you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And the other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to feed people bullshit because they know what bullshit is. Like, people can detect bullshit real quick. But yeah, that's one of those things where it's like, damn, like people that are buying cars now have a better understanding of the values, and even just the specifications. So like when you walked in before now these times, I'm sure people walk into a place and be like, I'm not too sure what to do here. And they're like, okay, well, we start from nothing and we build your way up. It's like Taekwondo, you start at a white belt.
Right.
But now you walked in with experience or with knowledge at least. So it changes the game. It's really changed the game on it because now they have to respect you as a person that at least understands the basics. You know, you're not somebody that walked in with zero. You walked in with knowledge already.
Yeah, now I'm an expert at the foundational level of yoga. I'm not an expert at the advanced levels. I'm still a student at that level, but I know enough. I know enough to work with beginners, to work with people for, you know, injuries. I actually did a lot of work with the older community, with like senior citizens. I did a program at Nova where I would train old people in fitness, and it was really a beautiful experience. That's where when I found yoga. I was training them in general modalities like weight training and just general like gym stuff like cardio and like dance and whatnot. And my professor came to me, and at that time I was studying to do like pre-physical therapy. And my professor came to me and she was like, that meditation you did the other day for the class was really good. You should look at becoming yoga certified. And at that time, it was just a hobby for me. I was taking another course adjacent to that fitness course that was a yoga specific course on breath work. And she was like, you're really into this stuff. You should explore it further and get certified. A lot of people need this. And so I went and I did, and it was a blessing.
There you go. It's a blessing. It was a journey, but definitely a blessing. And they saw that in you. So that's why I said, hey, pursue that. And here you are now. And you said you're not an expert at the advanced, but I mean, we're all gonna forever be students. I think if you proclaim that you're the best or that you know everything, that you got a lot more to learn in yourself.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And with things changing, like sometimes science changes. Like science is people have misconstrued the concepts of science. Science is like whatever's provable. It's a tested theory over time, but like, what if you test it and later the results are different? That's when the science changes. So like that goes along with our paradigm shifting. There were things, theories, science, laws, foods, all kinds of things from like the 80s that are now outdated. Like those paradigms are shifting. Things are shifting, especially as the world evolves and we operate in a different manner. Things will continue to shift. So you got to stay with the times.
Yeah, and I mean that goes, in business as well. A lot of times businesses that go out of business are ones that aren't able to adapt. Ones that aren't able to keep up.
They keep up with, like I said, forever student. They keep
yeah.
up with new techniques, new products, new services, and they get stuck in the old ways. I mean, if you ever watch The Office, that's one of those things where it's like Paper Company kind of started going out of business because they weren't keeping up with technology. But I mean, that show is great. It's one of my favorite shows. But just as an example, like, you have to kind of keep up with what's going on, because if you're not, you get left behind in the old ways. Even it's like generational.
Yeah.
It's like if our parents taught us the same shit and we abided by that, we would not be here making a podcast. We'd be working, overtime to pay bills.
I was telling my stepdad, he's like a little older. He's actually surprisingly current for being older. However, he's like, I'm going to go do this podcast. He's like, what's a podcast? What's a podcast? And I'm telling other people, I got to go get ready for the podcast. He's like, I asked you earlier, what's a podcast? I said, Dad, I'm going to go be on an internet radio and we're going to be on camera. And he's like, oh, okay.
There you go. Yeah. At least he understands that, though. It was internet radio, Dad.
You put it in a context he could understand. Yeah. Interview with video. Yeah. That's it.
Interview.
Okay, just as like a slight pause, I just pulled up our list again to see if there's anything you guys wanted to go back on, touch on again, or any other topics, just to kind of like inspire more dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked a little bit about, like masculine and feminine energy, balance. Even though I do feel like we live in a time where we're almost being taught to not be too masculine nowadays, you know what I mean?
We need men, like everyone's like, women, want the same jobs as men. Like no woman wants to be a garbage carrier. No woman wants to be a bricklayer, work in masonry. There's a few, but like, men have different capabilities than we do.
Yeah,
so
that's a brutal lifestyle to live. So shout out to the women that do that. That's like bricklayers and even construction. I know some women that do that stuff, and that shit is rough. I mean, men got calluses on their hands, and their hands are rough. So women are just as equally in that. And they say, hey, this is what I want to do. It's like, great. That's awesome. You're strong, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Personally on my healing journey, I was super masculine. Like, growing up, we didn't have like the same gender expressions like in my time. And I was a tomboy. That's like what I was. Yeah. But now, like looking back, I might have been more on like the non-binary expression where like I would express really androgynous, which is like I neither masculine nor feminine, but sometimes I would have like really strong tomboy days. And just from exploring myself further and like asking myself why I presented that way, and digging deep into my self-development. There are still days where I show up like really rugged and tough, but I definitely have tapped in more to my feminine, and that's been really healing to me. So I think men tapping into their masculine can also be really healing for them. Tapping into both sides, finding that balance.
Balance.
Yeah, that's
big one. Hey, you were thugging back in the day. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, she used to be my manager. Yeah, she was thugging. She's like, what the fuck is up, Dan? I'm like, oh shit, yo.
I was a tough girl. That was before I found yoga. I was like really a tough girl. And I'm going to keep it real. Like I found yoga and it was a journey. It was like many, many years, like 4 or 5 years of like digging it up. And then when I went to LA, actually I stepped away from my practice and I was doing so much self-development work and I was facing a lot of challenges that I wasn't actually able to touch my practice. It had escaped me. And then as I progressed in my journey of like finding myself, I was able to get back into my practice. So it's a constant journey of self and exploring the self. And it's okay to like fall away from those things and come back. That's okay. That's part of human nature. It's part of the journey. But I'm very grateful for the practices I have that serve me.
Yeah, I'm sure that, like you said, it was 100% a journey, but, I think conversations we've had before about how you never even realized that you had a lot of like pent up anger inside of you. Yeah, and it wasn't until like you did yoga that you found a way to release that because to me, like emotions are energy. If you think about it, emotion, like motion, emotions, emotion, energy, and motion. Yeah. And like a lot of times, like people, I watched a whole video on this guy that, like I guess he'd always felt like he wasn't really in his masculine, like he'd gone through a really bad breakup years ago, and it was still affecting him, and like he had all that pent up in him, and he never found, I guess, a way to release that energy. And he went to like this men's group therapy. And like one of the first things they did was just like you said, like lay on their back and then they're just doing breathing exercises, like just breathing and breathing and breathing, right? And then like all of a sudden, you see this man just getting emotional, he starts crying, and then like he's afraid to let it out, but the coach is encouraging. He's like, no, you have to let it out. You have to let it out. Everything that you've been wanting to say. And he kind of went off. He was like things he was never allowed. Like, fuck you, bitch. Why did you cheat on me? Like, why did you leave me like that? I did everything for you. I gave this. Like he just like everything that he wanted to say. And like he left that camp smiling. It was like a week-long thing, but he was like smiling, like he felt like he finally overcame, this hurdle in his life that he was just not able to overcome. To me, that's what working out is for me, bro. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I still have, like anyone, like throughout the day, we get bad news, we get good news and bad news and stuff like that. You're going through things, and like for me, like I know when I'm having like a bad day or like I'm going through something, I know my workout's about to be crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's a way for me to be able to release that. Is it? Some people might argue that it's not the healthiest way, but for me, it is definitely one way for me to release. I mean,
not everyone thinks everything is healthy, but it's whatever you feel is fit for you. Because honestly, I had that issue too, bro. Growing up, or like when I was younger, like in my 20s, like early 20s, I always joke that I have like 3 months of a really great life, and then I have the one day that's just like absolute shit. Like I'm like the lowest I've ever been in my life, and that's because I was always on this high that I never wanted to, or never express my like sadness or anger. Yeah. And then that one day, there's just random as shit. Like I remember one time I called my buddies crying, and I was like, dude, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me, man. He's like, what is it? It's like, I don't know, bro. I'm driving and I'm fucking crying, bro. Like. Yeah. I don't know, like, what am I doing in my life? And he was just like, dude, and he gave me like all these, affirmations and just kind of helped me kind of get out of this rut. But it's like, I would have that every once in a while. And you see me, you've never seen me mad. You've never seen me sad. And you've been my friend for 14 years. And I couldn't find an outlet of like, what the fuck is going on? I always just had that thing where I was like, yo, once every 3 months, bro, I'm just gonna let it hit me, whatever. But then you see, like, I started working on my cars and I started doing things like that. Like you said, for you, the gym. For me, it's like, dude, I started working on these projects and everyone always wonders why I'm like fucking buying cars and I'm buying cars and flipping cars and buying cars because I always need something to do. Like, I'll get in this car and if, he's a pain in the ass. I'm about to throw him in the room. But I'll get in on this car and something's like, there could be something that's like a small fucking bolt that I can't get out. And there it goes right there. There it goes. Fuck this stupid, fuck this bolt. Oh, fuck, and I'm mad and I'm fucking angry. Yeah. But it's coming out and it's coming out at a fucking car. It's an inanimate object, bro. It's like you with the weights, or if you're doing yoga, it's you with the reflection. It's like it's coming out, but it has to come out somewhere. And I prefer it. Damn, battery died.
Yeah, so just going off that masculine expression, like you were mentioning, like expressing that rage, cursing, being in that kind of feeling, that's really sacred to men. And because over, decades, we've been pushing men down to not express that, it's caused a problem in society.
Big problem.
Yeah. And so, like when I go to festivals, if you ever have the opportunity to go to a festival, take the days off work. It's so worth it. There's so many transformational workshops. And when you find yourself at a transformational workshop, whatever that may be, through movement, through breath, whatever, you may find people doing this thing and they call it calling out, where they're like, like they're going into Super Saiyan mode. That's like the best way to describe it, especially men. I mean, myself, I tend to call out quite a bit. Got a lot of stuff in there, but they call it calling because in ancient times, when we lived in villages, when we lived in like community styles, really close knit communities, when there was a tragedy, when somebody died, when there was a life lost, or harvest didn't come correctly, whatever it is, people would gather together and they would wail and they would howl, like if a chief died or something like that, and they would express that rage. Women, we will cry, we will weep, we will be dramatic. But men, in today's society, they have to hold it together. They have to button up and be super tight. So when you guys get that experience to be in a men's group, I'm actually thinking of starting a men's group where I'm not the leader, I'm the organizer, because, that's a space for men, but men can just get together and they can be in their rage in a safe place and hold each other in that place, because another guy knows what it's like to be in that rage. Yeah. Those spaces are so important.
They are. And honestly, I'm glad you said that about the men's group. One of the best places I find that is, so my buddy Eric, shameless plug, Knockout Fitness, we'll go into, he calls it the chamber, and it'll be me and like 3 or 4 other guys, and we're in there just doing work. We'll do individual workouts, and then he puts us together. Ooh. And then you see, like, I'm struggling. He's like, come on, man. He's like, dig deep. I know it's in there. Find it. He's like, let it out. And he'll see that, I'm struggling. So he's like, yo, put some voice behind it, man. You got a lot of, so next thing you know, I'm in there just fucking, I'm like, and the guys in the room are doing the same thing. It's all of us that
feed off each other.
Yeah, there's none of us like, man, fuck this guy, he's being louder. No, it's like, nah, hell no. You know what, bro? I'm gonna give it my 100. And that's you're letting out whatever's in there.
I've heard about Knockout actually.
And Knockout Fitness is awesome.
Yeah, I've heard a few shouts for Knockout. So go ahead, Knockout, do your thing.
Yeah, Knockout Fitness. Eric, go ahead, Big E. But yeah, it's deeper than one. You burn 1,000 calories in 45 minutes. Crazy. But 2 is it's that sense of like you leave and you're just like you've left everything there. Yeah. That's why I call it the chamber. You've left everything in the chamber. Like you've left everything.
The gulag.
Yeah, coming in the goo. Yeah, let's start telling to call it the gulag. But yeah, that's what it is. That's one of the biggest outlets. But a men's group would be dope.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if I take that.
I was gonna do a men's group, but I ended up leaving. But don't think it's not in the works, because I find men to be sacred, and the sacred masculine has protected me. So I'm really honored to have beautiful men in my life. Handsome men. Sometimes I call my men in my life my men. I'm like, he's so cute. He's like, don't call me cute. Like, I'm tough. Like, I'm brolic. Whatever. So I always try to correct it to whatever fit the person I'm complimenting. But yeah, I think it's so important. I see these men's groups sometimes like going on backpacking trips together, like some real intensive stuff, and that's it.
Yeah, it's local. Yeah, it's cool because there's so many outlets. I take some of my friends paintballing. And just that is just like, yo, it's a cool outlet. Like you said, it's backpacking or like fishing. Dude, we love fishing.
I think one of the biggest things, and I said this on our Cancun podcast, I think like one of my favorite things about that trip was like just the sense of camaraderie. Yeah, we felt really close together. Yeah, and like you said, I think, and this kind of goes back into like the animal world too. Like, if you take like a dog that has social anxiety or like has a lot of times like even like health issues mentally, and you put it in a pack of like normal dogs with normal dynamics, where there's like alpha, like just it's the quickest way to rehabilitate a dog is by putting him in with dogs that know like normal functions, that are actually allowed to be themselves.
And our friend group dynamic is beautiful. That's why I tell you got to really value the relationships that are worth valuing, because we went on this trip with our solidified friends and we stayed solidified, and we even met other friends from, like let's say we met like F-Boy, right? Shout out F-Boy. We spent the school together, but we never really spoke, but we left this trip like so just comforted with each other. I'm like, dude, let's talk about your life, let's talk about my life, let's talk about this trip, let's talk about everyone. Now we're all in a fucking pool together. Like, yo, this is what solidifies friendship, is comfort. I don't think you find that anywhere. Like I'm gonna go run into him at a Walmart, but I run to everyone at Walmart. What's up, bro? How you been? Everything good? Everything's good. All right, cool. See you later, man. And you be done with it. But you're on a trip with someone, or you're on a fishing trip, or you're on a paintball trip, or you're at a gym, or you're at a men's group. You build relationships with people that you didn't even know were possible, because you limit yourself, because you're like, yo, I'm a fucking grown ass man. I don't want to be sitting around with these people. But yo, open the door for yourself.
Ooh.
Don't wait for it. Open it. You open the door.
Kick that door down.
Hell yeah. You gotta be welcoming. And obviously if you can read people pretty quickly. If it's somebody that's like, nah, it's not worth my time, it's like, it's not worth your time. I got friends that I don't talk to, because it's like, damn, they don't understand what this is. They don't understand elevation. They don't understand. I launched my business this year, and I surround myself with business people. I'm trying to make sure I can be the best I could be, right? They say, this guy said, you don't hang with chickens and expect to fly with eagles. And this one guy was like, yo, I don't fuck with Dan, man. He thinks he's some hot shit now. He thinks he's got business, he's making money. And it's like, bro, go ahead.
I am hot shit.
Yeah. It's like, well, I'm not a millionaire, bro. And I'm not making a stupid killing, but bro, guess what? That's where I want to be.
Some people will just project their own issues because they're envious. And, the thing is, if you have an entrepreneur in your circle and you're not an entrepreneur, or maybe your business isn't going exactly where you want it to be, it's okay to take a step back and work a regular job and do that job from 9 to 5, and then do your hustle from 6 to 10. It's okay to do that, but don't sit there and complain about your job that you hate. Use it as a building block to get where you need to go. And that's where a lot of people slip up. I see this with spiritual community especially. They're like, I don't want to work for the man. And it's like, maybe you work for the man for like 2.5 years and you're able to save up and, then offer a course or a retreat or a program. I see a lot of people that could really benefit from that. And I myself was that way for a while, where I was like, I don't want to conform. And actually, it was just a limiting belief where I didn't think I could hang with the other people. But once I broke past my issues with numbers, then I was really able to start banking and like reinvest in myself and do my hobbies to the next level, where I'm serving community again.
Yeah. And that's what it is. Sometimes you got to take a step back. Or if you love working for the man, not love it, but if you're comfortable with it, salespeople make a killing and you're cool with it, great. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to be successul, right? But that doesn't mean you shame entrepreneurs or you bash people because, they want to lead a certain life. If I can make, millions of dollars doing what I love, and if it's for someone else, then so be it. But for me, it's got to be my own path. I've lived a life where I don't want to, I no longer want to be, beneath people. I want to be the one on top. So, but like I said, you could just about, be successful anywhere. You don't have to be your own entrepreneur, but that don't mean you bash people. And like, I'm curious though, because you were talking about you overcame numbers, right? And that's dyscalculia.
Okay, so here's the story on that. Okay, so I was working for this really erratic, emotional guy. when I was in Los Angeles. It was one of my first jobs, and I was working in cannabis, and I was managing the business essentially. But I was also working for this guy and like helping him with his appointments and stuff. And growing up, numbers was not my strongest area for many years, and I didn't know why. So one day I had given him the wrong address, and I sent him to the wrong place, which honestly, it was common for me at that time to mix up numbers. Just to be honest, like, I'm going to out myself and be humble here. It was common for me to transpose a number. It was common for me to see a repeating number and confuse it. So I sent him to the wrong address, and he calls me. He's like screaming at me. He's like, Jack, where the F did you send me? Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, and I look and I check. And at first I wanted to say, oh no, I didn't make a mistake. It's you, and project it onto somebody else. And then I gave him the correct address, and he got really firm with me. And he was like, do you have a problem with numbers or something? And I locked up and I froze because, damn, he was right. He was right. I had a problem with numbers. I knew. And my whole life I had hid from numbers. I had done the bare minimum in the math classes. It stopped me at certain places. So I went home that day and I was like, damn, maybe he's right. Maybe his feedback is important to me. And at that time I was opening myself up to feedback. I was saying, when somebody gives me feedback, I'm going to look at the feedback, say, does this apply to me? If it applies to me, I let it stick. If it doesn't apply to me, I let it go. But this one, it applied. So I took it into heart. And I said, all right, Google, why am I bad with numbers? Yeah. And Google told me that there's this thing called dyscalculia, which is like dyslexia, but it's for numbers. And a lot of people have this. If you say to yourself, like, oh, I'm just not good at math, or like, I'm just not good at keeping my finances, or whatever it is, you're not a master of numbers. So that's where I was. And Google told me that oftentimes, as you're developing as a child, if you have a traumatic experience when you're learning numbers, it can affect your brain where, like, you just get a bad relationship with numbers and you go your whole life that way. So I sat down and I thought to myself, like, meditated, like, what was happening to me when I was learning numbers? And a very clear memory came to me that is a little bit private, but I was experiencing significant abuse, sexual abuse, when I was learning numbers around 5 or 6 years old. And I had gone into my class and we were learning the number 5. And I remember not being able to sit still during this lesson about number 5. And it was just like really uncomfortable. And that memory had not surfaced until I dug deep back, like thought to myself, what's my experience with numbers? What was my experience when I was learning numbers? So anyway, that's what came up for me. And I thought, damn, that little girl just needed some support. So I'm going to give myself that support now, and I'm going to fix this. And I'm going to take this feedback and I'm going to transmute it. I'm going to use it to get better. And I'm not going to have this problem with numbers anymore. I'm not going to let numbers defeat me. And I'm also going to work with angel numbers on a spiritual level. The 111, the 222, the 333. I'm going to master numbers. Okay, so I said, Google, what's the reason? Google told me dyscalculia. I said, Google, how do I work with dyscalculia? Google said, work on your handwriting. That's step 1. Get your spacing and your handwriting correct so nothing gets mixed up. Identify patterns in numbers, because patterns, your brain sees patterns and it will skip a beat or skip some processing. So always identify and slow down for the patterns. Step number 3 was like slow down in general. Slow down in general. Be conscious. What are you writing? What message are you relaying? Especially when you're doing numbers, since you are aware of the problem, go slower. So I was like, okay, started picking up these traits. I also called a friend who told me a few years ago he was having this problem and how did he overcome it. So I called him, explained to him what was going on. He gave me the similar steps. And I said, all right, I'm going to make numbers my bitch. I'm going to master numbers because I want to have a successful business. I want to get a hold on my finances. I want to be successful. I want to have a good savings account. Like, I live on my own and I was not really managing my finances the best. So anyway, after I took those steps to improve myself based on that feedback, I was then able to expand so much. Like I got into doing payroll, got into doing accounting, started learning how to trade stock options, doing all these things with numbers that, me 10 years ago in high school, I was like putting my head down on the desk because I couldn't engage with the numbers. I didn't even have any awareness of the issue. But after taking those practices, implementing them, and creating that change, now I have like a great relationship with numbers. Now I'm like so much more financially savvy. I'm like so much more financially secure, and it really helped me. And now anytime I have a problem or I get negative feedback, I can take a step back and say, all right, how do I work with this challenge? Not just shy away from the challenge, not just shy away from the numbers and avoid them, but like really take them in stride and lean into this problem. And so when you start identifying where your problems are and where your limiting beliefs are, you can actually lean into those and work with them. And then you expand so much so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, this all ties back to, like you said, the shadow work. You had to find where it was that began, the root of the cause, and you worked on it. And like you said earlier, you made your weakness your strength.
Yeah, you made it your bitch.
Bitch, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you circle back to the beginning of a conversation. That was nice. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear that you overcame it. There's a lot of people that don't even understand that they do have serious issues, that they'll probably go their whole life just shying away from numbers and making mistakes and getting called out and just, burying it under the rug. But
yeah, if there's one thing I can say is that if you're afraid of numbers or you have some sort of fear of working with numbers, men, women, anybody, it's something that you can overcome. And if you just look for the resources, you can develop the skill further. Any skill can be cultivated. We look at people that are so far along in their career, their expertise, and we think they're naturals. We think they're born with it. But it's hard work to become an expert in your field. It's hard work to become good at anything. And you have to be willing to be bad at something first, right? Is there anything that you guys want to share where you were not so great at something first and then you dialed it in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I just sent a video to our group chat of like a video I did for Eric and Matthew, which is also Knockout Fitness, and another boxer Matthew was on our podcast. And I sent them the video and I'm like, guys, look how far we've come, with the video aspect. It was 6 years ago, colors were way off. Skin tones looked like they were Cheetos, Yeah. The lighting was horrendous. I didn't understand like some of the technical stuff that would have made the video flow a lot smoother. The title was boxing advertisement because they were advertising but I could have been a little bit more unique, you know what I mean? And yeah, like she said, anyone who's ever great at anything, never started that way. It definitely took time. It took energy. It took learning, improving, learning from mistakes. It's a process. Look at anybody, that's successful at something, and I guarantee you that it was a long journey to get there.
Yeah. I mean, I had a great mentor in the detailing world. You could ruin a car, man. One of the first cars I worked on was a Rolls Royce Wraith. It was one of the Redskins players. And I'm in that thing like if I fuck something up, man, that's 6 figures I don't have, It's like, but I had a good mentor that taught me. He's like, hey, man, look, you're going to fuck up, right? He's like, don't on this car, but you're going to fuck up, and I have gone through when I first started, I turned in work that I thought was great. And then I pulled it out of the garage and looked in the sunlight and was like, damn, dude, I didn't do fucking thing to that car. Like I thought I did this great work and it looked like shit. And I'd be like, hey man, like I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. Hey, work this section longer, do this better, work these compounds, try new things and work new things. And now it's like, dude, I'm in the garage. I got everything I need. I can try new things. Different cars have different paints. You give me a 6-figure car, dude, I'm rocking it. I'm not worried about it, So, but you got to start somewhere. Like you said, you got to fail. I've fucked some cars up. My guy, shout out Giannis, man. He's gotten calls. How long you have this detail for, dude? He fucking sucks. Like he missed like half the shit because I wasn't aware of what I was doing. I just thought, I thought I was doing a great job, but there's expectation, and he'd have to go fix my issue, and then we'd have a conversation. Hey, bro, this is how we're gonna teach you to be better at it because we can't, we can't have these kinds of fuck ups.
That's a good conversation to have with a mentor. this is how we're going to explore this problem.
Yeah, and he was and it's crazy because I was his first employee, so he didn't. I don't know where the fuck. I mean, he used to work for a couple of companies and stuff, so he had experience. But to understand that we were in the same boat because he only had like a year more experience than I did, so he was on the same boat. But he could come to me and say, "Hey, look, man." Instead of saying, "Yo, you fucking suck, bro. You're done." Like, he said, "Hey, man, look. Show me how you're doing it, and I'll show you how I'm doing it. We'll see like how what conflicts it or what complements it, and let's just do things better." So like you said, a mentor goes a long way. Go back to my godfather, dude. That man showed me not just in business but life, man. Family. He's got family, and he teaches me. He talks to me about it. My brother, same thing. It's always good to have a mentor because the difference between knowledge and wisdom is that wisdom can be handed down so you don't have to experience that to gain the knowledge. Like, you touch a stove, that motherfucker's hot, you burn yourself. That's knowledge. Wisdom, Josie, don't touch that, bro.
I think it's so important if you don't have a mentor to seek out mentors. And like for myself, I used to have such an ego and be like so standoffish that people would try to help me and I wouldn't want their help. So just speaking to people who haven't tapped into their mentors, haven't tapped into the wisdom of their community, do take that wisdom because it comes with experience. They know what they're talking about. They're not sharing it just to think that they know better than you, but they're sharing it because they actually genuinely don't want to see you suffer.
Yeah, they want to be there. It's funny because Monday I went to the gym with my boy Matthew, and we had 225 on the bench, and I bring it down, and he starts putting his hand down there. I was like, I got it, bro, don't worry. He goes, yo, man, check that ego. That's all he said to me. Oh. And I was like, fuck, you're right, bro. Come here, get in on this shit, bro. Because honestly, his workouts are intense. But also, like, anyone else will be like, yo, leave me alone, bro. But I understand he does this because he wants to see me thrive. Not because he wants to be like, yo, nah, bro. Because my max bench is 245 because of him. He was like, bro, you won't do it. He challenged me. Uh-huh. But he didn't challenge me because he thought I was a bitch. He challenged me because he was like, nah, bro, I know you got it in you, Uh-huh. So, yeah, mentorship. But also take guidance from people that want to see you succeed because like I said, just that little line reminded me, he's like, yo, check that ego, bro. And I was like, damn, you're right, because anyone else could get carried away and I said, man, shut the fuck up, bro. Hell no. Listen when people speak, man. You learn a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people just like are giving feedback at any given moment to you and you need to take a second and pause, right? Like they're not saying it for no reason because sometimes like it takes courage to speak up to your friends. It takes courage to like correct or compliment or whatever it is. So just take a moment.
Yeah. And at least you've listened because you don't have to. Josie and I were at the casino and I was down $300 and he's like, look, man, I think it's time. Stop chasing it, bro. Just stop chasing it, And I said, damn, should I stop chasing it? And my dumb ass didn't, but I should have listened to him, So I went this past weekend with a group of friends, and this guy next was Berto. I was down, and then I was up, and he was like, "Look, man, just stop it right there, bro. Stop chasing it." And I started thinking, I was like, "Damn, Josie told me the same thing last time." I was like, maybe I should, bro. So I did. I said, you know what? This time I'm gonna listen. I said, I'm gonna pull my cash out, and we're done with it, bro. Because, like I said, you choose to listen. And you choose to act on how you listen to it. And if you don't want to listen, fuck it, you don't listen. But if you want to listen to that wisdom is good, So
yeah, you can't make someone do anything. Also, like when you're sharing wisdom, I was this big like always sharing. You should do this. You should do this. You should do this. But I had to learn that not everybody wants that advice either, and so. That's okay if they're not ready to receive that message, if they're not on that frequency, if they're not ready to get that, or maybe they're not ready to get it from you, that's okay. Take your wisdom, take your knowledge where it's accepted, where it's cherished, where people are listening. Yeah. Jordan Peterson says, if people are not talking to you, Jordan Peterson says, if people are not listening when you're talking to them, stop speaking. Mm-hmm. Stop talking to people that are not listening to you. And go where you're valued, where people will listen to you.
Yeah, that's deep, honestly. And if your friend group has that, awesome. If not, check your friends, baby, because, check everything. Like I said, we got a friend group of people, entrepreneurs, people that aren't entrepreneurs, highs, lows. We got a friend group, but the thing is, we all listen to each other. It's like I would say, like, seek counsel. Like, they are my counsel. And if you're talking and it's like, I don't want to hear what this motherfucker's saying, you're not in the council, man. I got people in my life that are just kind of slowly dissipated because they're not worthy of that listening. Or I've had people tell me, Dan, you always got some shit to say, bro. All right, I'll shut the fuck up, bro. I'll shut the fuck up. But don't expect me to speak on things anymore. These people slowly disappear too because they don't want to listen. It's like, dude, I give you something. You don't have to take it, but at least listen, bro. So, like you said, yeah. If my words don't mean shit to you, I'm sorry, bro. We're done speaking. That's all it is. It's quick. You make a choice every day who's in your life, and if you're not benefiting from each other, or if they're not supportive, or if they're not someone of value to you, they're just taking up space.
Yeah, you want to be like really conscious of your relationships and like what give and take looks like, and whether or not your dynamics are toxic. And if they are toxic, it's super easy to get into a toxic communication loop. It's very hard to break that. You have to be super aware. You have to be super deep in your self-development practices to break that kind of thing. So if you're not able to break those toxic cycles, that might be a sign to end that relationship, whatever it may be, friendship, romantic partner. I've been super lucky this year to learn how to end toxic cycles with people and still maintain a good relationship with them. So that's something worth exploring as well if you think that relationship is important and valuable. But remember, you can't change someone else. You can only be like a positive influence and a positive light. And then maybe they'll see your lead and they'll be able to elevate to that vibration. They might be able to take some cues from you and evolve as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100% right. Yeah. This is stuff I need to work on. I'm glad. That's crazy you said that because, I got cycles. I got to break cycles and whatnot. So, damn. Well, this has been a deep one, guys. I think this might be where we end it on some real shit. Jackie, thanks again for coming on. Is there anything you want to tell the people, anything you want them to know about yourself, business, anything else you want to throw it out there? Shameless plug.
I'm just here to speak and share some wisdom. I definitely have some cool things coming, so you guys can stay tuned. And thanks to these guys for having me. They're amazing, amazing gentlemen, and keep listening to them. They have great things to share.
Yeah, and be on the lookout for her, like her men's camp. So
yeah.
I'm being that motherfucker on the floor breathing. All right, guys, thanks for another episode. Great episode. Like, subscribe, all the goodies, comment, whatever you guys got thoughts on, because this one was deep. So we're excited to see what y'all want to talk about or what y'all got to say about it. And keep that negative shit to yourself. Peace.